I'm a dude, and I'm inviting you to join me on a podcast about brews.
Does that include stouts?
Yes, of course it includes stouts. Like I was saying, join us every Saturday on the journey into...
Wait a minute. Do you guys do anything about like IPAs?
Yes,
Stuff like that?
yes, we do IPAs.
Okay.
Yes. Anyway, join us on the Journey into Comics Network for Brews with Dudes.
Whoa, hey, have you guys ever... Do you care if I bring some Zima on?
Yes, I care if you bring Zima. Zima doesn't count. Zima's... Dr. Dongo. Anyway, join us every Saturday for a podcast that delves into the craft brew world.
The following
Journey into Comics.
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 Network.
Production.
Hey, this is Josh Richmond, and you are listening to the Voice of Survival podcast, exclusively on the Journey into Comics Network.
You're listening to the Voice of Survival podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, your host, Nate Phillips.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of the Voice of Survival podcast here in Season 2. I am kind of your host, Nate. Now, usually I am your guys' host. Today I have a very special guest with me. Welcome back, the first ever two-time... This isn't really... Actually, you are the only other host in the history of the Voice of Survival podcast officially, if we're being true here. But welcome back, Tyler McLaughlin. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. We just had a nice... almost mini Journey into Comics, mini JIC pre-show. We're both thoroughly ready for Endgame tomorrow night for you, Friday night for me. Really excited to do this show. You and I have been talking about it for a long time. And, you know, I came onto the network and right away you were like, I want you as a guest for Voice of Survival when we can set it up. How would you like to do it before that as the host? And I was like, well, I mean, I can do that.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to be back.
Dude, it was crazy because, okay, so fate is a funny little bitch. You drew cards during Fool's Week first year to be the host of the show. And you brought your homie Travis Wilson on, and you guys had an amazing conversation. It was one of the best podcasts, personally, I've ever listened to. Just the depth of his story and the triumphs and tragedies he had to kind of overcome to be where he was, man.
Well, thank you.
It was amazing, you know. And your ability to lead that conversation just set the tone for me, just being like, okay, if like anything were to ever happen to me, I know somebody who could actually keep the Voice of Survival alive and kicking, you know. So,
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, man, for sure. So you and I were chatting, I know it was leading up to us seeing Captain Marvel together.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, like, exactly when. And you said something to the effect of, like, how would you feel about me interviewing you, which that's backwards, Tyler interviewing Nate, just so that people get what I'm trying to say here, for the Voice of Survival, since, you know, it's always been your show, but, like, you have a story to tell too. And I thought that was a fucking dope idea. So we've been trying to set this up for a while now, man. And where did that come from for you? That's the one question I'm going to ask. Like, what gave you the idea to even ask me? Because I feel like I'm just a guy who just is, you know, constantly just doing stuff. I'm not, you know, whatever, thinking about the past and the journey and things of that nature.
Well, I remember, like, way back in the annals of time, which, you know, in reality was like a little bit more than 12 months ago. You know, I was still getting familiar with the network, and you had kind of started with some of the, or a good portion of the hosts that were on the network at the time. And I remember in our original group chat that you had said something along the lines of, eventually I would like one of you or someone, even if it was just you by yourself, to do your episode. And I don't remember exactly how the conversation went, but it was like, okay, we'll do it eventually. And then along the same lines, we were having a conversation in the group chat, and you were like, I'm trying to kind of roadmap what season 2 of The Voice of Survival is going to be. And I just thought about it, like I like to have conversations with you enough already, but and I consider you one of my good friends, and I don't really know much about your journey. I mean, I know some of the bumps and some of the really important stuff, but I don't know a lot about Nate in the, just kind of the mundane day-to-day life, especially when you were a teenager, So I thought this would be a good opportunity to learn more about one of my good friends, somebody that pretty much from day one has opened their door and their home to me. And,
Fucking A.
Yeah, it didn't feel right for me to just kind of leave you calling to the void like, someone do this show with me. I can be that guy. I can do that for you because you've done a lot for me.
Well, hey man, I'm glad that, first of all, I'm glad that you remembered me ever saying that, because a lot of times, I'm going to be honest, I'm usually always trying to create concepts and ideas, and the group chats are places where I leave memos to myself, because I don't write notes. I don't fucking have time for notes, but if something good pops in there, I'll send it to you guys, I'll send it to the girls, I'll send it to Nick, Max, and just whoever in the moment I feel will understand where my headspace is and maybe can give me, at some point, or maybe not, some energy back that really fuels the story. So I'm really grateful that you even remembered that I said that, because it was just like one of those random, I threw it on the wall, like maybe somebody can interview me, cool, whatever. I'm on to the next thing,
Mm-hmm.
But I don't really have anything else to start with other than just saying, I guess it's your show now, and I'm going to let you take over and start this. I've never been on this side of the table. It's quite weird.
Well, I was going to start it really, really simply by just saying, I mean, let's talk about your early years. Where are you from? Did you move around a lot as a kid? Were you, were you a blue-collar, red-blooded American who protected their home and household with Nerf guns? And I mean, let's talk a little bit about that.
Okay, so I was born in a town called Danville, Illinois. It's probably got like, 12,000, 15,000 people or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't live there, though, but it was just the big major city. So birth is in a different place. My actual growing up, formative start of my life was in Hoopeston, Illinois.
Okay.
Town of 6,000 people in central Illinois. Literally, there's fucking nothing. It's corn. And literally, this is not a joke. This is not me trying to set up a gag. At one point in time, Hoopeston was the sweet corn capital of the world.
I can believe it.
Most produced sweet corn on the planet from this place. Things changed, though, and industry changes, and a lot of the jobs left. A lot of the factory jobs out the door mean people are out the door and looking for other things. So I kind of grew up not really, I don't want to say in poverty per se. I just want to say that my parents were, like, my dad lost his job the day my mom said that she was pregnant with me. Like, the universe said, hey, Jim, fuck you. Here we go. Like, here's your journey. And now, it's funny because we look back on that now, and it's like literally inherited Phillips luck. I might be a lucky individual who has a lot of cool shit that's happened to me in my life, but I have also witnessed the dumbest, most insane bullshit luck you've ever experienced. Like 1 in a trillion odds. So growing up for me was really interesting because I remember the house I grew up in. It was on Lincoln Street, and it was multi-floored. I can remember, man, there's a lot of little memories that pop out from that house. When I was probably like 3.5, the bowling alley that was behind our house burnt to the ground.
Was there any damage or risk to your home, or was it that
No,
close?
There was like probably 2 parking lots, big space between us and that. So I mean, it was like in our backyard when you're a kid. It seems in your backyard when you're seeing this fire, but it was huge and it devastated our town, man. It was unexpected. And I think that's an interesting thing to note, that fire has been a big part of my journey, and I'm an Aries. I don't know if that's like fucking correlated or some weird shit, but like, so there was the bowling alley fire when I was 3, and then I'm 5 years old on the playground, my first year in kindergarten. It's like the spring, probably like March, getting towards the end of the first school year. So I'm like almost going to be a first grader. And the big factory in town called Stokely's caught fire. Mm-hmm. And that burned fucking gigantic. I mean, it was the big... I remember just being on the playground and looking up and seeing the black fucking plumes of smoke and just being like, it's chaos. It was like apocalypse for that time. Because I'm 5. I didn't know any better,
Right.
My parents, in my early years, it seemed that they got along pretty well. And they dealt with tragedy and stuff really well. Like my grandpa on my dad's side went in for a routine surgery to have his leg removed because of gangrene. And his heart stopped. And because he had a DNR, they did not resuscitate him. And he is deceased. So my dad at like he was like, 30 years old, lost his dad. And was like a man with fucking no guide now.
Right.
And I watched my mom and him be comforting to each other. And there was, at least at that time, I think, love, as it were. But also, I could also tell that trouble was brewing as I started to get older, and I noticed that there were arguments kind of on the horizon and stuff, and weird things were happening. And people who I weren't expecting to come to our house were sometimes showing up at our place. I was staying with different family members sometimes because there were things always happening. And that was always fun. I loved fucking going to my different family members' houses and shit, Like, my grandpa had a cool fucking house that I got to play around with and play in and shit, and had this, like, they built this pit. That's probably loud as fuck if you heard those dogs, folks. I'm so sorry. But Tyler definitely did.
Yes.
But, so being at my grandpa's house, like, it was cool because there was, like, a lot of fun shit to do or whatever. So that was never weird. But then, like, I got to about 6 years old. Well, of course, when I was 3, my parents had another kid, my sister Sam. So I grew up with her, and she was like my fucking little buddy, my companion, and we did everything together,
Are you two the only children?
Well, we're the only children of Kelly and Jim.
Okay.
Now, my mom had another kid, Taylor, and I love her to death. She doesn't speak to me. She has a really... There's so much drama we're going to get into about my family because it probably does need to be at least said once for the record, so, but we'll get there eventually. So me and my sister, did everything together. And of course, my mom and dad in 93, I think it was. Yeah. Sam was 3.5 and I was, that's about right. So I was like just out of kindergarten, getting ready to go through the summertime. Mm-hmm. My parents separated. My mom moved to Champaign and my dad, I think, stayed in Hoopston. Maybe I think he actually went and lived with my grandma. But we were back and forth, kind of with no home. We'd stay with her sometimes. We'd stay with him sometimes. There was no really stability. Mm-hmm. And my mom was like, not to call her out, but she was fooling around with the Coke man, like this guy that delivered Coca-Cola, and that was kind of maybe why there was some friction with my parents or whatever. And it was really strange times, man, because it was me and my sister kind of fending for ourselves. And getting into really crazy adventures. We were at my mom's one time, and she was fucking around with that guy and not paying attention to her kids, and told us we could go out and play. We adventured all the way to where the apartments that she was staying. We adventured all the way to the pool, which was closed. But my sister happened to get herself half stuck in the fence of the pool. Mm. So she's like 3.5, and I'm 5, going, what the, what do I do? And I had to ingenuity thing for myself, squeeze some things apart to get her head out because that's what was stuck,
Right.
And and I'm thinking, I look back at that shit now, and I'm like, dude, my little sister could have fucking died right there, man. Mm-hmm. Like, and it's like you don't. I guess now I feel like a kind of an asshole because I'm calling my mom out for being a shitty parent a little bit, but also I want to say that now that I am a parental figure to a younger kid, I can't fault her, because when you have a child in your life, not to say that what she did was right, but you can't expect that you're going to make every correct decision,
right?
Because it's a first time thing.
Well,
and it is learning.
I think this is a good opportunity too to kind of rewind a little bit. You brought up both the fires, and you brought up some imagery of arguments and kind of adventuring back and forth from family member to family member. As an adult now, I think it's fascinating sometimes, not necessarily to reminisce or be nostalgic, but just, you and I talked earlier about random memories popping into your head that you can't really, it's kind of fuzzy. Like you remember what happened, but you don't remember any of the details, or you might remember some like very particular things, like there was a guy wearing a bright red shirt in this memory that I have, but I don't remember anything else about where I was at or what we were doing. But I mean, it's such a profound thing to think about stuff that sticks with you when you're a child. I would imagine, if you had the artistic ability, and I'm not saying that you don't, to just pull the image of you standing on the playground as a 5-year-old or however old you said you were at the time, and looking
5, correct.
And looking at that plume of smoke, hovering over your town of one of the major pieces of industry for the community. I mean, if you had the ability to just recreate that perfect, the way that your eyes saw it the first time, I mean, I'm sure it would be, it would be a very powerful image. And
even thinking about it now, I'm just like, damn.
And it's not something that necessarily immediately affected you. But for some reason, just that image has stuck with you that long. The generation before us talks about where they were during the Kennedy assassination. Our generation talks about where we were when 9/11 happened. There's major events like that, and then there's the little stuff that kind of filters in on the bottom that we forget about. And then every now and then you might see someone burning leaves or a house fire, and you immediately think about, hey, I remember what that looked like when I was standing on the playground,
Yeah, and a lot of times, I'm glad you said that, because a lot of times for me, it's like, for me, not only is it the imagery, but music is tied to so many of the defining moments of things that either changed my perception on the life experience, or because it was a tragic thing that stuck out. The song specifically like brings up a lot of hurt in the moment if I hear that song or whatever. But like, there is a lot of that imagery though, and I think that I'm gonna say this in a really fucking weird way. Don't get me twisted, but like I feel like my subconscious self, in some way, is almost like torturing myself with the tragedy that I've already lived through. It's like, hey man, do you remember that? And it's like, yeah, I do. I kind of don't want to, but that's cool. Like, I'm glad you, and it's not like one of those things that some people I know who suffer from PTSD, and that's a totally different thing than what I go through. I don't get like crazy fits of emotion out of nowhere and stuff. Like, a lot of it is just me going like, fuck man, like I can't believe I got through that shit, like really, I can't believe I'm here talking to you today, because there are so many fucking microscopic factors in the journey that could have shifted a fucking millidegree in this whole entire journey, and none of this is here. So
moments of unwanted powerful reflection.
man, and like you wouldn't believe, and one thing I want to say though real quick is there's like one trip that my parents took specifically where they were gone for almost 2 weeks because my mom had to have surgery on both of her arms. Okay. And in that time, it was like 91. So my little sister was very little, and I think she might have went with them because I don't really recall. I'm like fuzzy memoried because I was really still pretty young, but I do remember that the whole trip, both my mom's side of the family and my dad's side of the family kept spoiling me by going to like big box stores, and we would pick out the Batman Returns toys. And I had so many fucking dope. I wish I still had them. Like I had the original Catwoman. I had the fucking original Penguin toy from that came with the little mini Penguin action figure that shot a fucking rocket. Like, oh, it was so cool, man. There were so many neat. That one experience is like a really truly joyous part of my journey when I was very young, where my parents were away, and it was the first time where I felt safe with family, and I understood that like trust.
So one of the next questions I was going to say,
Sure.
So from my childhood, I've repressed a lot of my mom and dad stuff, especially because I was so little.
Yeah.
But there's like very specific arguments that I remember my parents having, and then my level of involvement differs. But I always remember those arguments or those altercations or instances very, very vividly. Were you, as far as your parents' relationship, when they were into it, were you involved in any of that, or was it, let's go in the other room and have our disagreement because we don't want our kids to see it?
Well, I'm glad you asked this question because looking back at it, I was probably never meant to be in the position I got put in, and I think that's a lot of the reason why my dad has been so strongly in me chasing my dreams as an adult.
Mm-hmm.
Because my mom, and again, I'm not trying to be an asshole, man. I genuinely love her. It's not about that at all. But she used me as a pawn in their divorce, and I get to 7, 8 years old, and when I'm 8 years old, of course, they'd gotten back together. I kind of left that off the story that they separated for a time, and then they decided they wanted to make it work. The whole family moved to Champaign, Illinois, so now we're an hour from where I grew up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in a school where I'm maybe one of 4 white kids that go to the school because we didn't have a lot of money. We shouldn't really have been living in Champaign. And it was culture shock because Hoopston, I'm not going to lie, at the time, there were not very many African-American families, so I was very naive to that culture.
Mm-hmm.
And it was different. I wasn't like I was always bullied. I will say it was a lot more aggressive than the school I was used to, and it wasn't just about making friends. There was a lot of people trying to impress people and always a competition, and I saw it as something different. My parents decide after me not having the best time in my first grade, we're moving back to Hoopston. And truth be told, I'm actually recording in the house they bought when they decided to move back to Hoopston.
Okay.
I'm in that house right now when I'm talking to you. So that's powerful. So things are good. Like the course looks good. Our family's back to normal. Mom and dad seem happy. Me and Sam are cool. I've got literally on all sides of me neighborhood kids that I know and am already friends with. Mm-hmm. So I am literally in my pack. Okay. So it's 95, and it's March 19th, and it's the night that Michael Jordan is coming back and coming out of retirement. So he had played, they won 3 championships, his father got killed by some crazy guy, and he went and did baseball for 2 years and then came back, wearing the 4-5, right? So that night, my family is huge Chicago Bulls fans, okay? Anticipation is ripe. My sister and I are like, hey, we want to go over and play at the Tyler's house, not Tyler, the Tylers, that's their last name. So Ryan and Malia Tyler are our across-the-street neighbors, and they're great people. And had a lot of fun memories and life experience. Sometimes Ryan and I fought because we were both like kind of trying to be that quote-unquote alpha.
Right.
But And this particular day, my whole worldview shifted permanently, and it changed. And I've briefly mentioned this. I think I did a little like Road to Survival in season 1 where I talked partially about this, but so my best memory is this. We went to the Tyler's house. We're playing. We were doing hide and seek. We could hear my dad yelling. Not yelling at my mom or anything, but he was yelling for us, hey, kids. So we came around from the back, and my mom and dad were on the front porch, and they said, hey, Sam needs to come and have a shower at some point, now or later. And I said, Sammy, why don't you just go now, and then you come back and play, and you'll be clean. It'll be cool, right? But I did not walk her across the street, which is okay. At first, it seemed okay because she had done this a few hundred times. She was like 5, and we were in a small town where there are not cars, okay? Mm-hmm. So she's like, I'm going to play for a little bit longer. Okay, cool. And I was like, well, when you want to cross the street, let me know, and I'll walk you over there. So she said she was going to go, and I said, oh, you want me to go over there with you? And she said, no, I'm fine, I got it. And then the whole world flipped because I hear the tires screech, I hear a thud, I see my sister on the ground, and she looks dead. She's not breathing. I, as an 8-year-old, have taken in a lot of cuss words, okay? But I've never, to this point, said cuss words unless an adult has prompted me. Hey, say shit. Ha ha. It's a funny gag, right?
Right.
So these people hit my sister with their fucking car, and I scream at them as an 8-year-old, you fucking killed her. And I'm just over and over again saying that. And it's to the point that my parents come out, then my mom rushes out, and she fucking loses it. She grabs my sister and moves her. Humongous fucking mistake. Could have killed her. Thankfully, it did not. But she wanted her out of the road because my sister's just laying there in the road. Mm-hmm. Okay? And so here are some factors. The guy was doing 45 and a 30. It was foggy. He didn't have his lights on, and he might not have been paying attention. It's possible that he was like fiddling with a CD or tape player or some shit. Mm-hmm. She just didn't see him because he didn't have his lights on, and it's fate. So she breaks both of her legs. She's in a coma for 9 days, unresponsive. They airlift her to Carl Clinic. We get in my aunt and uncle's car, and they did 120 miles an hour to the hospital. It was the craziest shit. We actually beat the helicopter to the hospital, which I don't know how that works, but that's what happened. And then it was, kind of fuzzy for a while, and it was dark. That was a really dark time in my life. I didn't know if I was going to have a sister. I didn't know how that was going to play out. And then she woke up, and I was there when she did, and that was like, that's a powerful thing. That's like, I was not expecting to be there when she came to, and she came to and saw me, and that made her smile. So it was like, whoa, we've got her back. Like my friend is back. Mm-hmm. And so she came home in a 3/4 body cast. It went up to her chest and her legs were like just in like immobile with like a stability bar between them. And she was in a wheelchair. And that was a learning experience as a fucking 8-year-old, having to wheelchair your little sister around and things of that nature and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And, there were some cool perks, I guess, from her getting hit, if you want to look at it like that. Like, her and I now as adults joke, like, well, we at least got the pool. That was fucking nice, because the doctors, as a part of the settlement, because this guy was in the wrong and there was a case, and because he was found at fault, my sister got like awarded $130,000 or something, shit like that. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those, when she turns 21, she gets it. Mm-hmm. But another part of the deal was the people who hit her had to immediately, because of her physical therapy, pay for us to have a pool because she needed that to heal. And my parents were not rich enough to drive to and from Champaign every day to give her physical therapy. So this was like, this is how you're going to have to do it. So that's what came to, and we got the cool pool, and that's just been like a fun little thing we've been able to have as a family, and it's like this weird, it's almost like a monument to that history, of like her going through that. And it was also strange too and overwhelming going back to school after that, because like everybody looked at me like the weird kid. because my sister was the one that almost died, and like the whole town knew about it because we're a fucking small town. So I just, as an adult now, I caution to wonder what everybody was saying and thinking and wondering about the fucking Phillips family when that shit went down. But we got through it, man, and it was hard. Shortly after that, my parents divorced. My mom was fucking around with the art teacher at the Hoopston school, which now is my stepdad. That's why I said it, because if it would have just been some guy, I wouldn't have probably thrown her under the bus like that. But he actually is a pretty cool dude. And, again, tragedy changes people. And I can't imagine being 32 years old, which my mom was at the time, I'm pretty sure, and watching your daughter almost die. Like, I can't even envision the kind of wedge that might drive between two people, So I try not to blame them, but then, and this is now we're fast forwarding into, now I'm 8, moving into 9, my parents are divorced, and I've officially become a pawn on a chessboard that I am not aware I am on. And, maybe some of the listeners aren't going to be so thrilled to hear things like this, but my mom was doing things like, okay, the first Christmas they were divorced, my dad's like, hey, we don't have a lot of money, because it was just me and him. Like I said off air earlier to you, I had made the conscious effort that I was going to live with my dad and had to tell a judge that. And I've blocked that out of my memory. My dad has told me I did it. My mom talked to me about it once. I don't really recall doing it. So it's just there.
Is that something that happened immediately when your parents decided to divorce officially, legally? Was that something that took place right away?
No, actually, great question. Again, nailing it with the points. Okay, so here's like kind of the way it worked. So mom and dad decided they were getting a divorce, and it was over. And I was like, okay, I'm dealing with it. And it was very stressful for me. Again, we'd just been through this family tragedy, and I thought we were going to be able to make it on the other side of this. We'd gotten through my sister almost dying. Like, what else can we have? What else do we have to overcome, to keep this going? And my mom moved out, and we moved with her. And
Okay.
I was there. Well, my dad moved out, and we stayed here, I guess, is really how it actually played out. So she stayed in the house that I'm in right now for like a month. And my stepdad was coming around. And one night he came around and he was drunk and he was talking shit about my dad. And I'm 8. I can fucking understand fucking English. You know what I'm saying? So I called my dad because I want to talk to him. And I was like, hey, man, he's talking bad about you. I don't like it. And I don't want to live here anymore. I can't. I don't want to do this anymore. And he said, okay, well, you can't come stay with me right now because I'm living with my buddy in Lafayette. And that's just not great living conditions for a kid. Let me figure it out. So he said, he called me a day later, and he said, your grandma's going to watch you. And I was like, okay, cool. So I went over to my grandma's, and I told her what I wanted. And I said, I really want to live with Dad, with you here. Mm-hmm. And her wheels fucking went to a different place, and I think she realized what I was saying. So she said, go call your mom and tell her right now. You have to call her and tell her if that's really how you feel. So I'm like, okay. So I call mom, and I'm like crying, and I'm like, listen, I don't like Carl. He's not a good dude at the time. I'm a kid, and I want to live with Dad at Grandma's house, and that's how it's going to be. And she said, well, he'll have to make it something in court or something. She said something to that effect, and then hung up. And I was like, oh, shook, and Dad did not let me go back with her after that. Mm-hmm. Until this matter was settled. He literally was like, Nate probably needs to be with me. He's really not doing good, whatever. So I stayed with him. We ended up moving in with my grandma. It was cool. We lived there for probably like a month and a half, and then Mom moved out of this house, and Dad bought the house back, or got the house back in the finalization of the divorce. She got money, he got the house. And we moved. Dad and I moved here. Sam lived with Mom, and she didn't have a choice, but I got to have a choice, which I was very grateful for. I look back on my life now, and the guy you're talking to today literally cannot be alive and exist if I still live with my mom. Because one thing, the way that she wanted me to be someone I'm not, and the way she kind of bullied me about stuff, I probably would have hurt myself or done something really terrible. Just, I mean, I saw my sister go through it, and my sister's I applaud my sister Sam more than any other human because she has been through every fucking trauma you can envision. She's known people who she's watched die right in front of her. She got hit by a car. She's, almost had a child and then not been able to, like all kinds of crazy shit, and she just soldiers on. And she's just like, I got this, whatever, it's fucking life. Lost the use of both of her fucking arms, like, what the fuck, man? So, she didn't have that choice, but she was very strong and survived my mom and the entourage. But I got the different brunt because first Christmas here, and my dad's like, hey, we don't really have a lot of money, and I need the Christmas tree skirt that you took. You have an extra. Can I have my one back that my mom had given me? And my mom just was like, oh, yeah, sure, cool. And she dropped it off, and I'll never fucking forget. We were downstairs. It's like 2 days before Christmas. We had this tree set up, but he wanted to get the presents down and whatnot. And she drops this skirt off, and he unrolls it, and spray painted on there is Merry Christmas, asshole. And
Wow.
I read that at 8 years old and was like, what the fuck? So that was like one of the first examples of me seeing the game and what she was trying to play. And man, my mom was trying to just like emotionally kill my dad, and I think she damn near succeeded, but I think he has an indomitable spirit. And he just will not fucking stay down. Like, he doesn't let like, he learned. He's like, fuck this. I could let her beat me down, or I can just, like, say whatever, Kelly, play the stupid fucking game. And he did, But, like, there was a time, these are just, again, things off the top of my mind when you're talking about the divorce that pop in there. But, like, there was a time when I was over at her house, and she said, hey, like, I don't know if you know what this means, but when you go home, tell your dad he's a dickhead. So she just said that, no anger, just like said it to me, okay? I walk in the house, Dad's upstairs brushing his teeth. I walk in, I'm like, hey, Dad, Mom wanted me to call you a dickhead. Immediately he's on the fucking phone, like, and it's war, And that was kind of my life for a few years, man. And really, my dad, bless his heart, has a mad temper. It's a Phillips thing. My grandfather had a crazy temper. He was he was a fucking welder on tanks in World War II, like over there during the battles and shit. Like when shit would break, my grandpa's over there with the fucking welding torch with no fucking eye protection. It's why his macular degeneration was like doubled and he went blind before he was like 50. So my dad, most of his life, had a father who was blind. So my dad's 10 years old working on cars by my grandpa telling him, do this, do this, do this, do this. If you're not strong enough to do this, put the tool here and put my hands here so I can do this. Like, so my dad, like, he learned the hard way. So really, he and I bunkering down together was a tough life. He was hard on me sometimes, but that hardness and that kind of pull yourself up by your bootstraps type thing, it definitely strengthened me as an adult and in the things I've had to do and overcome, and just like being confident in myself a lot comes from how he raised me in that regard. So yeah, man, those like younger years, a lot of that is times with my dad was listening to music a lot and him working and not being able to be there for a lot of things because he was providing. So it was sports things that he would miss and all the typical fucking USA divorced kid shit you hear. It's not anything special. Like that stuff's all boring and really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of it. Like, so what? He missed me fucking miss a fucking hit and strike out 3 times in a baseball game. Big whoop. Pick my nose in the fucking outfield. Like it's I wasn't a star player doing any of those things. And it's really funny because I'm so naive. As a kid, as a young kid, when my parents were still together and we were in the first house on Lincoln, they were trying to get me to be musical, and they would give me guitars, and I wanted to be Ace Frehley, and like it was there for a small time, and I guess I was just super blind to what that meant. And then like 8, 9, again, parents getting divorced and all that shit, but it was also the time that music got introduced to me formally through school. And I wanted to play trumpet. couldn't do that, couldn't play trumpet, they gave me a pair of drumsticks and said, good luck, because they didn't think I had talent to do anything that was going to be blowing. I was not skilled enough to blow anything, which I guess works out for me as an adult. I don't blow well. There's a joke there somewhere. So yeah, they handed me drumsticks, man, and I fell in love, really. I fell in love with, they gave me bells and a drum pad, and I'm like going to the babysitter's house, and I'm drumming while I'm watching Power Rangers and Ninja Turtles and shit, and learning like the Jurassic Park theme on my xylophone in 95, because it's like this fucking cool thing, or 96, because it's like the cool thing to do and shit. And
that was like the height of the xylophone too. I mean, let's be honest.
Oh yeah, totally well said. So like a lot of those John Williams-y scores that do different musical things have stuff like the interesting xylophone lines, and we were playing that as kids, but very simplified versions and whatnot. I really loved music, man. It was like one of those things. It was the first spark that I didn't know was a spark, I guess.
Mm-hmm. So I wanna take a second and rewind just a little bit and talk about your sister. Because
sure,
you let off with, your sister is your sidekick, your number one companion, your little buddy. You go through the accident and she comes out of it and life is good, and then your family splits again. You were obviously really close. How was you and your sister's relationship while you were separated? You're two people on different islands. And then how did that kind of structure and set where your sister and your relationship is right now?
So the way it worked and the way that they structured visitation or whatever was my mom would have sole custody of Sam, my dad would have sole custody of me. Every weekend, the kids, me and Sam, would be together, but we would alternate which parent's house. So weekend A, dad's, weekend B, mom's, C, dad's, mom, back and forth, whatever. That was protocol, and then it was like once in a while, if there was a holiday, one of them got us on that holiday unabated. There was no questions. It was not, they got me for X amount of time, and then I went and saw my other parent on the same day. No. The rule was the kids stay together no matter what. So me and Sam were separate during the week and then together during the weekends, and it was kind of shell shock. We became different people in a lot of regards because of how we were being raised. She had this kind of bully human who was not nurturing her and really picking at her and being harsh to her. And I had somebody who was kind of showing me tough love, because I think if he was soft, he would have broke down himself because of how damaged he was at the time. So it was hard, and being apart and then together, man, we would fight more than anything after the divorce. Like, that's one thing I can say without question. Me and my sister's friendship was fractured because of the divorce, because it was how was mom doing things, how was dad doing things, what was Sam getting from mom, because my mom would play games with me mentally too, with things like, oh, well, I got your sister this brand new Game Boy, expecting that she was going to get my dad to double down and buy me a Game Boy, but we were, of course, less fortunate. So it was this, like, again, part of the pawn game, over and over and over again. So Sam and I fractured for sure, but we definitely, once we were getting older together, like in our late teens and stuff, started to figure it out, like, oh man, mom might kind of be a villain. Like, she might not necessarily be a good guy, and we need to watch each other's backs more and be more on each other's side, or we're not going to make it out together, or at all, for that matter. So we really did, too. We, getting into the high school and stuff, we bunkered down, and it was, again, thick as thieves. I ran in a lot of Sam's friends' circles just because they liked me because I was the older dude. And, a lot of Sam's friends tried to date and or / do other things with me that, didn't really go anywhere in that regard. A lot of the time it was because you're my sister's friend. That's strange to me, But we were, again, thick as thieves once we got into the high school range. And then it was, a a lot of the change, though, I guess I should probably not brush over the fact that we got hit with another family tragedy when I was 13, so my sister was 10, so that's 5 years removed from the accident and the divorce. Or, well, not really. Well, hold on. How's that math work out? I was 8 when they got divorced. I became 13. Yes, that's right. She was 10 from 5. Yeah, that's right. Okay, I'm just making sure, dude. My brain, dude, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, so the timeline is correct here. And 13, it's 2001. And it's June 15th, weekend of Father's Day. And it's Friday night, going into Saturday morning. Saturdays were swim meets. It was the first swim meet of the year. We were going to Monticello, Illinois to have our first meet of the year. They had a heated pool, which I fucking loved, especially because it's earlier in the summer, so it's a little bit chilly. And we got up that morning, and everything seemed normal. Mom seemed normal. Everything seemed fucking cool. We get in the van, which my mom had this green Astro van. Shut the van. We're getting ready to drive to Monticello, and she said, "Your dad's not going to be making it to the swim meet today." And we were like, "Okay, what's up? Like, what happened?" And she just completely cold, because that's who she is. "Your uncle got killed by a drunk driver last night." The end. Just like, so matter of fact, you know. Of course, I lose it. I fucking lost it. Because I just, like, so many different things were in my head, and I felt so helpless, and, like, I'm 13, and here we are. It's, like, another fucking tragedy's at my doorstep. Why can I not escape this shit? And, went to the fucking swim meet, and I swam my ass off, and I took first place in all 3 events that I was in. And I hadn't talked to my dad the whole time, and it was killing me. I had no idea what was going on or what the details were or anything of that nature. And, you know, finally when I talked to him and he told me, and it was very sad, and then it was all the family going to my aunt's house and all these different, like, man, I was traumatized, genuinely. And even to this day, like, if I go to my aunt's house and I walk into her bathroom, just because of my fear as a kid, because how fucking traumatic it was for me to learn about what had happened to my uncle, like learn actually how he died and the really fucking gory details of it all. For some weird reason, I always envisioned he was going to be in the bathtub. So, like, when I walk into her bathroom, I can't look at the bathtub because it literally triggers me to start freaking the fuck out and getting emotional. Because, like, I've just been trained all these years to just be that and to just feel that. And it was very powerful, you know. It was my dad's sister's husband, and my dad's so my aunt and my dad are like super fucking tight. They're just like me and my sister. Again, same kind of thing. They were a tribe. They were close in age and ran in packs and all that shit. So, you know, she turned to my dad because she had no one else and knew nothing else. And it was fucking that was the darkest timeline at that point in my life, man, really. And it was like the most fucked up, profound thing. A month after I got baptized, this happened, right? And immediately I started asking the question, like, wait a minute. If this God thing was real, why the fuck is this dude letting me suffer like this? Because this is fucking ridiculous. Like, why am I living on this planet to feel that? Why should any human feel the tragedy and loss of losing somebody? Because it's fucking awful. Like, there's no nicer way to put it, man. It's the worst. So the time after that was really tough for my family, and I had a lot of guilt from my uncle's death. I saw him the Thursday before he died. And I didn't say goodbye to him. Like, I didn't go up and give him a hug and say, "Bye, Uncle Jay." I just like, okay, we're going. And we just got in the car and left. I didn't think anything of it, you know? And that day was really prominent because they had just, in the town that he lived in, which is Ambia, Indiana, which is where my dad is from, they had just finished resurrecting the brand new water towers. So my dad, having a early digital camera, took pictures of me and my sister in front of these water towers. Like, and every time I look at those pictures now, I'm sick to my stomach because it's like this day that I want back. And I don't really live, I want to be honest when I say, for the most part, I have not lived my life with any regrets. Me as a
Okay.
person, I'm very much like, what will be, you know. But that's one of the few regrets I have, man, not saying goodbye to him, because obviously you don't know. And it was like a really fucking tough blow, man, out of nowhere. Here we go, you know. And it defined me for a little bit. And then later that year, do you know what happened in September of 2001? Should we go into that story? Do
Yeah,
we
we
need
can-
to have a recap?
Well, I mean, we don't necessarily need to recap, but I mean, like I said earlier, I mean, we didn't have the Kennedy assassination, but we had something as equally traumatic to our nation happen. You know,
Absolutely.
during our generation, every generation has had something major or horrific. You know, whether it's a natural disaster or something political. You know, like the Kennedy assassination or 9/11. I mean, did you watch it?
Okay, so I'm gonna set the full stage of that day and how I remember it as best I can, as quickly as I can, because I don't want to drone on about like this one. This one's not as personal of a tragedy. This is more of obviously a national tragedy. So I had to get up early every day my freshman year of high school to go to marching band. I was a marching band nerd, and I played cymbals. It's cool as
Hell
fuck.
yeah.
And I got to do some cool like cymbal techniques and shit. Well, our school got picked as one of the few schools that was going to go to the University of Illinois and do our whole entire marching program on the U of I's football field. So we had to practice fucking like nonstop all the time. So September 11th, 2001, normal day, obviously. Get up early, go to the school early because I walked. It's only a few blocks down. We're on the field. There's dew on the grass. I'll never forget it. I don't really know the time because time is relative when you're a kid. But I remember we were doing our march, and there was a spot where I don't play anything. And I was just like kind of marching in place where I did. And I was looking at the American flag that was on the flagpole in front of our school. And I was like, man, Stars and Stripes look real beautiful today. I just thought it, you know, no big deal. Go into first hour, and pretty sure I had PE first hour freshman year. Yeah, I did. And then second hour was English. I go to English in Mr. John's class, and Jeremy Dobkins ran in at the end of the class. He was like, did you guys hear a plane hit this building? And my mind, I'm still too naive. I'm too much of a kid that when I'm trying to visualize what he's saying, I'm envisioning a tiny single-engine plane hitting a gigantic skyscraper and nothing happening, right? Mm-hmm. Third hour, we went to Mr. Caparulo's math class, algebra. The room is black. He has nothing on the boards. The TV is on, and he is silent. And he is just not, he's literally not, he doesn't say a word to us. We all sit in silence in this math class and watch Tower 1 go, or the first tower that fall, the second tower then falls. Like, we watch all these things, we're learning about the tragedy and everything, and then it was just the rest of the day is a blur, and it's just focusing on this thing that has happened. Mm-hmm. I remember I got home, and I was very sad, and I'm, like, watching the news is on, and my dad comes home, and he's freaking out, and he's like, I just tried to get gas when I got home, and it's like $5.97 or some shit, and there's a line all the way down the fucking street because we're all going to die, and there's a terrorist, and all the, like, he, obviously, everybody thought the absolute worst because it was not in their lifetime. They didn't expect this to happen.
Right.
So that set the tone, though, because 9/11 happening reignited us going into a war state, and all these big changes happened, and in doing so, the company my dad worked for had to let him go. So here we are. I'm 13. My uncle's dead. I've lived these tragedies, as you guys know. 9/11 has now happened. It's getting ready to be Christmas. My dad gets let off from his job. He is now on unemployment looking for work and can't. He's doing side jobs, doing construction with buddies who can just give him cash when he can just to get us through. We're literally, for 6 months, living on only eating bologna and hot dogs in every form and fashion you can envision. And it was really rough. It was fucking so hard, man. But we come out on the other side of it. My dad got this job at this plant in Hoopston here, Silgan. He still works there, so it obviously worked out. And then, you know, once he got the job at Silgan, things start to turn around because he's starting to make money and put money away because he's not driving an hour to Lafayette to go to work because he worked at Wabash National.
Okay.
Was where he worked at, and Triesco, which was a subsidiary of Wabash. But the actual building that Wabash has that makes the big panels for the trailers,
The Duraplate.
that building, the Duraplate. Thank you, the Duraplate building. My dad built that building. So, he was a welder, and that's what he did. And of course, he gets let go, and so again, we're out. But then he got the job at Silgan, and it was cool because, like I said, he's starting to save money, put money away. He's starting to make money. And I remember I was a late sophomore in Mr. Reed's media class, and Mr. Reed came in. He said, "Hey, man, my kid, his son, had a Gibson Les Paul guitar for sale. My dad, when I was really little, had a guitar, but then from like 4 till 15, no guitar." And I had just started working at McDonald's and got myself a bass by the time I was 15. So I'm like, "Dad, you need this guitar, man. It's so cool." I'm like trying to sell him on it. He's like, "I don't need a fucking guitar. I'm not interested in guitar. I don't want a guitar." And then he said, "I want to go look at it." So we go to Mr. Reed's house. My dad plays it for 5 minutes. He puts it back in the case. He looks up. He goes, "Will you take $300 for it?" Reed says, "Yeah, that's perfect." Dad signs a check, gives it to him. Now we have a guitar in the house. So now we're starting to really sow the seeds of who I become, because while I've and we haven't even gotten to the journey of my decision to I need to back up just a tiny pinch in the story, just a hair here. So the year before my uncle died, a big event happened, and I forget to mention it sometimes, but October of 2000, I got to see my first rock and roll concert. I saw Kiss, right? Original lineup with makeup on their quote-unquote farewell tour right after Psycho Circus had been released, which was their first album with the original lineup in like 20-some years. I really wanted to go. I was a big fan of Kiss growing up. Dad was a huge fan of Kiss growing up. He had never seen Kiss live. I had never been to a concert. His buddy Bob Whitty has 2 tickets and happens to get sick the day before and says, "I can't go to the concert." My dad buys the tickets for $100. It was like the last $100 he had to really spend frivolously. And we fucking went, man. And I saw Gene Simmons play bass. And that sparked me that when I was old enough, I was going to get a job. I was going to buy a bass. I was going to start learning this instrument. And it was going to be what I did, which I did. I went at 14. I was like 14 and a half. I was going to be 15. I applied at McDonald's. I had to have my dad sign a work permit. They did not hire me. I called and annoyed the shit out of them until they eventually did hire me, because I was not taking no for an answer. I was like, "I'm getting this fucking job at McDonald's because I want this bass." So they eventually hired me, and then I worked 2 years there. I picked up my bass. I bought a BC Rich Warlock. It weighed almost half of my body mass at that time. So here I am. And there's pictures, man. You can look it up on my first band Draxus's Facebook page. There are pictures of the OG days. And here is Nate. I'm like 105 pounds soaking wet. And here's this 49-pound BC Rich Warlock that's also pretty much the same length as me. And it looked ridiculous, but I loved it, and I was like playing a lot of different stuff. Blink 182 is like my first thing I did. I learned the entire Take Off Your Pants and Jacket album on bass. I loved it. There was just something about Mark Hoppus's bass playing that it did it for me, and it was really easy. Like, here's introduction level bass, how to play. Here you go, enjoy. And it was fun to play along to. But then, Tool got introduced to me, and Metallica gets introduced to me, and now we're off to the races, and I want to start a band, and I'm trying to create this band called Rock Slide, which is really my dad's idea. It was something he wanted to do when he was a kid, and I was like, oh, what a better way to pay tribute to my dad than to start a band and call it the name he wanted to call a band. But it was going nowhere. I had a drummer, I had me. I had a drummer, had me. We weren't writing songs. We couldn't even play songs. We were just talking about being a band. It was like, pipe dream. Mm-hmm. And then we started talking with this guy named Brandon Stone and his buddy Jason Long. and they had a pipe dream to be a band too, but they also happened to have an instrument. They had a guitar and another guitar. So we decided we were going to jam. What are our mutual interests? We all agree on Metallica. We all agree For Whom the Bell Tolls is the first song. Our first practice is going to be on Halloween 2003. And McDonald's calls me and they say, you have to work. You can't call in or you're fired. And I couldn't lose the job at the time, man. I had actually started to buy some other musical equipment and kind of had the itch to do it. So I wanted to have the best stuff and I didn't want to lose my job. So I jammed with Draxus downstairs in this house for like 5 minutes. It was awful. We did nothing. It didn't make any sense why we were doing it. Our drummer had brought his OG drum set over. And then we didn't practice for a couple weeks. We came back at it again. And the next chance we got, we practiced every day, 5 hours a day for 2 years straight. And we didn't get much better. That's the truth. We wrote some songs, which were cool. It was like the exploratory phase of writing songs, but like we could cover songs kind of, but if it came to a solo, there was not a single person in this band with enough fucking talent to solo like, say, Kirk Hammett or some of the other famous guitar players we really loved. I decided at some point to make the switch from bass to guitar because our guitar player, Jason, had famously like just left this gig and was really shitty to us, so we kicked him out. It was childhood drama, being kids and shit. Brandon and I soldiered on, and you know, Draxus was a beautiful thing that let me cut my teeth and learn how to be in the industry of music. Also, it put me in a controlled environment where if I was a dumbass and offended people, this small town USA is not big enough to tarnish my name now. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm glad I fucked up in Hoopston, Illinois when I was a kid and made an ass out of myself on the scene with how I was and my mentality of fuck every other band, we're the best band in the world, fuck you if you're in another band, don't go see other bands, fuck them, they don't deserve to make music, we're the only band that you should be talking about. Like, we had that mentality because we weren't good enough, but we also knew we could be good enough. We just had to have a push, and we couldn't get it here. And it was, you know, a great, beautiful thing doing that band for so long. I did that band all the way up and until the second or third episode of Journey into Comics podcast, if you can believe it. So it did have a little bit of carryover in the now.
Was that when you and Brandon first started to become friends?
You know, Brandon and I were sort of friends before the band because of toys. We both like Transformers. We both like some PlayStation games and whatnot. He was friends with my buddy Preston, so we all kind of ran in the same circles and shit. So, you know, Brandon and I knew each other, and then we started to become friends, and then we were all hanging around each other, and at this point, Jason has his license, so we all can gang up in the car together as a band, and we're traveling places and eating Chinese food together, and, you know, really having that camaraderie band experience that I think is necessary to understand how to work with individuals in music. And I was not, by any stretch of the imagination, easy to work with because I'm a perfectionist. If I hear something and it's not right, I'm going to say it. And I'm not going to sugarcoat. I don't care if you're talented enough or not, I guess was what I was saying when I was at that point in my life. Like, learn it. Do your best. Fucking fake it as best you can until you get it. Like, don't just give up and say that's good enough, I guess was my mentality, even though I had shortcomings as a musician, you know? So really having those dudes and those memories and driving to Champaign in the dead of winter, listening to Megadeth blaring with fucking Red Bulls and beef jerky and just chugging our Red Bulls and jamming on our beef jerky, like, those moments are genuinely fucking treasured to me in a different way than the music experience I'm having now. And we'll get to that eventually, but we got to kind of like navigate a little bit because Draxus is like the constant during these next fucking things we're going to talk about. I graduate high school, if you can believe it. Mm-hmm. I'm not a dummy. I was almost crowned prom. Well, okay, fair point. I was almost crowned prom king. Also, if you can believe it, Brandon, myself, and our buddy Preston all on the prom court. We took over that prom that year. We also had a mosh pit to Enter Sandman at our prom because fuck them. Yeah, man, we took over because, like, we were the cool kids because we were in a band and we were the only kids in a band in school at that time. So like, I kind of ran with every clique. I was friends with the preppy kids. I was friends with the stinky kids. I was friends with the goths and the fucking, our eventual bass player, Tony, was a Satanist, a straight up Satanist in high school. And he got chastised, bullied, picked on, made fun of, awful things said to him on the regular. And I was his fucking friend, man. And I didn't give a fuck if he liked the devil. I was like, fucking shout at that motherfucker, like bring it on. So, I had to remove the fucking hat. It was killing my brain meats.
I don't get to see that hair very often. Let that shit flow.
Yeah. It's long. It's gross. Ugh. Anyways, so graduated high school, and I was jumping around jobs. I'd worked at IGA, which is the grocery store, for a time, and then I went back to McDonald's and worked there for 2 years for a time. Of course, I quit McDonald's because of Draxus. I had this fucking big gig. It was so Tenacious D, I wish it was fucking on film. I wish, because it's so comedic. Like, someday I'm going to write a sitcom, and this scene is going to play out, and I'm going to play it for you. So, at the time, the band and I had started using Yahoo Instant Messenger, and we had met these girls who happened to be real-life friends with my step-aunt, okay? These girls are hot to trot. They were fucking foxy biatches, if I do say so myself. And we were looking for some tail, if you know what I'm saying. We were cool kids. We were in a band, right? So we invite them here, 3-hour drive, to come watch us play music. We have no PA. We only have amps and drums, and literally this whole time we were just scream singing Metallica's For Whom the Bell Tolls over the top of the music just so you could hear it, right? Just so you could, because we don't have a PA. So these girls on Valentine's Day drive with my aunt 3 hours north to see us do this shit show in a dark basement with a couple like fucking strobe lights and weird shit, and we thought we were the bee's knees and put on the best concert on earth. We were so happy. And then we're like, hey, we should go to Monocle's Pizza and celebrate. And they're like, okay. And they didn't talk to us the whole time. And then they just got up and left and never came back.
Oh, shit.
It was that bad. It was that bad. We had scared and terrified these girls that we had been internet talking to. And of course, my personal opinion, if you want my opinion, I think it's because Jason wasn't necessarily factual about, he wasn't body positive and didn't tell the truth about who he was. So there was a little bit of a deception that had happened, and these girls felt a little bit hurt by that. But again, I don't really know because I wasn't talking in the private conversations. I just know how they all kind of responded to us, and it was very strange to have that kind of like honest rejection in our first attempt to have a show. Still didn't officially have a show at that point. We're not going to call that our first show because it doesn't really count. We did have another first show later, but so I jumped around jobs and whatnot, and of course I went back to McDonald's after I quit because they wanted me to not play that big gig that was going to change my life, and I was going to get my wife from that show, obviously. Mm-hmm. So I just came to terms with it, and eventually when I went back to McDonald's, they wanted me to be a manager type, and I was interested in it. I thought the pay would be good. Of course, the responsibility was astronomical for what they were asking me to do. There was a lot of shady shit that I was learning was happening that I just was naive to at first. And our bass player, Tony, had got this job at this place, Lifetime Doors. It's like a factory. Make good money, man. You work only 4 days a week. What more can you want? Cool, go there. I fucking hate it. It smells like horse shit. Literally like fucking manure because they use horse bones for the glue for the doors. So it's like compacted. It stinks. It's the nastiest fucking smell you can imagine, right? So I work there, and initially I worked there to build pallets. So I'm using a nail gun to build pallets all day out of scrap wood and scrap doors. If a door's fucked up, I have to build a pallet out of it, right? And I have to like nail. So I'm using this. I almost fucking shot through my finger a couple times and whatnot. Well, I tell my dad, I'm like, man, they just recently said there's going to be some forklift jobs opening up there at Lifetime, and I want to get one because that's like a way higher paying thing, and you're just driving around. Like, that's much easier than doing this shit I'm doing. He said, well, let me take you to Silgan, which he did, and showed me how to use a forklift so I could take the test. I go in, I fucking ace this test. They take me from building pallets and put me in inlay, which is literally where you're gluing the shit. So you're in the fucking horse glue area now, and it smells 10 times worse. So they punished me for trying to better myself, essentially. And because it's the worst job, and you like every shirt you have gets ruined because if the horse glue gets on it, it like eats through it over time. And it's like it's not pretty, man. And I quit. One day I said, I'm going to get a job somewhere else. I'm going to take Monday off. This was in 1 week. So Monday I don't go into Lifetime Doors. Me and my buddy Will drive into Danville. We hit up all these different places, applied at all these different places. The last place I walk into is GameStop on Vermilion. There's a beautiful young lady in a black and white striped shirt with a green skirt on. Long skirt, not short. She's just gorgeous. She's killing it. And I'm like, hey, I applied online to be your assistant manager. Did you guys get that application? I think I'd be great for the part. I have no idea what GameStop is about at this point, and I'm just like bullshitting. And the manager comes out. And she's like, "Hi, I'm Liz. No, we didn't get your application because we don't do anything with online. We don't get any of that stuff. That's all through corporate." Oh, okay. So I'm like, so my interview's tomorrow then, right? I just straight up fucking say. And she's like, okay, sure, let's do it. So I have the interview with this lady the next day. I don't go to Lifetime Doors day 2. So now 2 of the 4 days I'm supposed to work, I don't go. I do the interview. I still have no read on whether or not I'm going to get this job. Wednesday, I go in. I go in because I'm riding with Tony every day to work. Tony goes in. He quits that day. He literally drove there to quit. So now I'm there without a ride. I pretty much have to call in again because if I don't, I'm stuck there an hour from home. Fuck, okay, so now I'm 3 days calling in. Thursday comes and I'm going to go in regular day. Go in the morning. I talk to my soup. I tell him, like, sorry, man, Tony quit yesterday. It was fucking crazy. I didn't want to call in. I'm sorry I had to do that on you, whatever. And go about my day, and it gets to about noon. And I went out to my lunch break. And I just felt something, man. I just didn't feel right. And I said, fuck it, I'm gone. And I walked. I never turned around. I never said anything to anybody. I just left and never came back. I ghosted on him. And I'm driving back, and I was like a little bit upset and whatever, and I'm like really bummed out. And I'm like, you know what? I don't need to be bummed out. I'm going to get home, and the first thing I'm going to do is call about that GameStop job, and they're going to give me that job. And I call, and this lady answers. It's Kelly. She doesn't have any idea what I'm talking about. She says, call tomorrow. The manager will know tomorrow. Call in the next day, which is Friday. Liz answers. She's the manager, and she says, hey, Nate, we want you to come in Saturday and start working. You got the job. So on a whim, I quit and get this other job, and that's okay. So now here is where I want you to start paying attention to things happening in my life that are stepping stones to other things. On a whim, I quit my job, leading me to GameStop. Flashback. Do you know who the lady in the striped shirt was at the first part of that story?
Mm-mm.
It was Sarah. She was the third key at GameStop. And the first day I worked there, I worked only with Sarah. So this girl who I had no idea who she was, who I thought was gorgeous, is now my boss on my first day, and she does not want to have anything to do with me. She literally tells me, go in system lock, which is a secret room where all the systems are kept, and reorganize it. It's a fucking mess, but she didn't want me on the floor because I was literally an idiot who had no idea, and I was just going to make her day so much harder. So she just put me in a safe away from people and did everything by herself. And she's like, it's much better this way. What she didn't realize is I'm super OCD and anal retentive. So I clean this fucking system lock so clean and organize it in such a way that it became the standard in that store that they still to this day use, okay? So she's like, wow, that's actually impressive. Like, holy shit, you're not bad. Like, cool. So then I started working there, and then her and I became friends, and then, like, I learned that she was in a really awful fucking situation with this really abusive dude, and her and I became even closer, and then, like, she wanted to leave him, and that eventually happens, and then, like, her and I start being together and whatnot, and that's been a fun, interesting journey being with Sarah for 12 years, and if I'm sitting here now today looking back at the annals of our relationship, you know, meeting Sarah is the catalyst for everything that my life now is. On all fronts, on everything that I get to say is who I am as a person and what I get to, the reality that I get to live that you know, that so few know, like, it's her. Like, she sparked the network, and she had ideas for Draxus when we first started coming back into the fold, because we took a little bit of a hiatus. The band pretty much broke up. Brandon had quit. Jason was gone. Tony was leaving for the military. Mason had quit because he got a girl pregnant. Like, the band had fallen apart. And she, in 2008, said, you should try to get it back together, and I did. And we had some of the best times, and we had my dad drum. And that's a new experience for me where I get to share the stage with my father, and no one ever takes that away from me. And that's an experience, I don't know how to even quantify it. It's so special because you don't have a lot of family combos in music that can work well together or that can recognize that it's a special thing to do. Mm-hmm. So many people take it for granted. Well, we're a family. Of course we can be musically inclined together. No, it's a lot of work. Persons I fought with most about the band and in the band was my dad, because he's also a perfectionist. And he would call the bullshit that I let pass. So there was no slipping, and we worked even harder when he was in the band, man. He had a fucking heart attack. Swear to God, he had a heart attack, okay? I take him to the hospital because he's not feeling right. He's like all pale, and he's clenching his chest, and he's not well. They say he has a mini heart attack. So a couple days go by after he's been released and everything's cool, and he feels like he's having another one. So then they take him to the hospital where they took my sister when she got hit by the car, actually. And he gets an angiogram done. Do you know what that is?
Mm-hmm.
They put a little, like, cut in your leg, and they shoot dye in your heart so they can see where the valves are and what's all good. For those of the listeners that might not know that, right? So they cut a slit in his fucking leg right to his main artery, and that day he looks them dead in the face and says, when I go home, can I drum? Is that cool? And they're like, no, sir, you can't play Rock Band, because that was around the time the game Rock Band was out. And my dad's like, no, you fucks. He was super serious and pissed off that they patronized him. He's like, I play drums. I want to play my fucking drums. Can I do it, yes or no? And they said, well, you're going to have some soreness, and you risk tearing that open if you drum. Doesn't matter. Day later, my dad calls a practice. 1 day later, he calls a practice. We're all down there. We're playing for about 15 minutes, and he all of a sudden stops because he ripped it open. Like, he's a fucking gangster, man, you know? Like, what the fuck? Who does that, man? That's why I'm so tenacious and try not to, like, I guess, man, I just realized there's a part of our story that I also have to travel back in time for. We'll get there, but he just made me a really tenacious dude, man. He made me, like, I saw him have pneumonia and perform in a show and just fucking soldier through, and he coughing and hacking his fucking lungs up between songs and still playing. And it's like, what the fuck are you doing, you know? So as far as role models and people I admire, man, like, my dad really set the bar, and that's why, to go back to my original part of the point, like, that's why playing music with him was so special. Because in some of the best moments in my band Draxus, I got to share with him, you know? And so I got to share it with my friends and my dad in a different way, you know? And I was really grateful for all those times, you know? Yeah. I don't know where you even want to go from there. I feel like I just rambled for a few 100 minutes.
Well, what do we have to go back in time for?
Well, we should probably touch on my head trauma that leads to who I am today.
Okay.
So I'm 9 years old in 5th grade. So it was like the tail end of 5th grade. And I was dating this girl named Elizabeth Lee. And apparently this kid who I also went to school with, Ricky Bell, had a crush on her, but I had no idea. I had no clue. But he thought I personally took her away from him.
Okay.
In a fit of rage and jealousy, and this kid so this kid, Ricky Bell, he had it rough for sure, because in my, like, from 5th grade on, he was the only African-American kid in my class. He was picked on. A lot of tough shit had happened to him. He had a rough home life. He stabbed one of our teachers in the neck with a pencil.
Whoa.
Really happened, yeah. So he was a really dangerous, volatile kid in 5th grade. And I was standing on the bus line waiting to go home. And he jumped me from behind and slammed my head into a locker so much that it bent the locker in, okay? And it concussed me. I don't really remember a lot. I know I cried a lot because it hurt really bad. I know I ended up with a black eye, but I also know that after this happened, I was going to my mom's to stay and visit for that weekend. So she just let me go lay down on the couch and go to sleep. Hey, man, you have a concussion. What should you probably not let someone do?
Go to sleep.
Because it can do any kind of thing, right? Any kind of thing. So I don't know if you'll remember this. You might have been a little bit young, but there was a event on like NBC or ABC or some shit. It was like a TV show called Asteroid. And it was about, or like Meteor or some shit. But it was essentially about this big meteor shower that was inevitably going to hit the planet, and it was going to cause our destruction and demise like the next global ice age event. But it was this big CGI experience that was going to be on TV for the first time. And the week it was set to debut was my first migraine. And I remember because of that show, I came home from school. My head was hurting. I wasn't feeling right. This is like early 6th grade now because the year had changed. And I told Dad I was going to go up and shower. And he never heard the shower turn on. And like an hour later, he found me laying in the bathroom floor just out because I had hurt so much from this migraine. So he like woke me up and I was still in a lot of pain. And he said, "Hey, what's going on? What's going on?" And I was like, "My head, it's hurting. It like won't stop hurting." And I'm like crying and I'm freaking out. And it's like, it's a pain I can't describe. It's in the back of my eyes. It's in my neck. It's in my temples. It was everywhere. First experience of a migraine that I can genuinely recollect. And I've lived with those pretty much every day since. Like, there are days when I have a migraine that's so little, and you suffer from them too, so you know what it's like, where you don't really have any pain, and you're like, oh yeah, I like had a dull pain or whatever, it's nothing. And then there's weeks where you just can't escape it. No matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, your eyes are throbbing constantly, the light kills you, smells hurt. Mm-hmm. How do fucking smells hurt, man? That's
I
one
think
thing.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. It's just that's crazy to me, is that smells can hurt.
Well, I mean, I'm really glad that you told this story, because for people that don't suffer from migraines, it's hard enough to make them understand what we go through. And you know, you and I have talked about it on air before about how different it is person to person on how their body takes and copes with a migraine and the symptoms that they receive and experience. It's totally different from person to person. But I think for us that experience them, some of what makes it worse is we remember, because it's so traumatic on your body the first time that you experience it.
Absolutely.
And I want to stress again, it's different for everybody. I mean, you basically passed out from pain. Your body just shut off because it fucking hurt so bad. The first time that I got a migraine, I thought that I was having an allergic reaction because if I get stung by a bee, I'll go into anaphylaxis. And feeling, I had pretty much worked for 22 hours straight. And it was in the summertime, it was during the day, and I was doing a mundane task, and I was like, man, I do not feel right. And my whole body went numb, and my whole body felt like, you know what your foot feels like when it's asleep?
Yes, that tingling pain sensation. It's not a good pain.
That's what my whole body felt like, and I was nauseous, but I couldn't throw up, and I was like,
you couldn't beat the nausea. You were just like in it.
And I was like, and it felt like my throat was starting to swell up. And I was like, there is something wrong with me. I have to go to the doctor right now. And the people that I worked for at the time, they're like, well, yeah, I mean, you can leave if you want. And I remember standing in the room with just pure bewilderment on my face. Like, I got to drive myself? Like, I don't want you to call an ambulance, but, like, you're sitting in a chair. Like, you can't help me out here?
What the fuck? Yeah.
So
that's super dangerous that they let you do that.
So, well, I ended up having Skylar come get me. You know, we were dating at the time. She left work and came and got me. And I basically went to the emergency room and they pumped me full of enough fucking medication to knock me unconscious. But I just, you know, we've pointed out a couple times during this episode that, you know, things that maybe aren't extremely traumatic or don't appear to be extremely traumatic or kind of trivial things. Like, I will never forget that feeling that I had that first time that I had a migraine, and I'm sure that today you can't forget the way that first one felt for you.
Well, that's the bar, and it's not like it's ever a competition, but my dad, being that he lived with me through all these migraines and has experienced me go to different specialists and different doctors and have fucking CAT scans and all MRIs and everything you can think of for them to say, we have no idea why you have these. Sorry. That's it. That is literally what doctors say. I can't help you other than to give you pain medication. Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, with him living through it, if I'm telling him about an episode I've had or a situation where I've been wiped out by a migraine, I try to like rank them. And he knows if anything gets anywhere near the first one, he knows that it's like, oh shit. And last year I had one like that, man. I scared, Sarah thought I was dying. Like, that's how bad it was, because I just kept like moaning. I was in so much pain. I couldn't escape it. Nothing was working. I had taken a cyclobenzaprine, which is a muscle relaxer.
Yeah.
My dad gave them to me in emergency situations, like especially this one. Take it. Okay, I take it. It's one of the rare experiences where I took one and I actually start getting the side effects. So what's one of the side effects? Vomiting. What do? Run to the toilet and puke up a 12-inch sub that literally makes my migraine even fucking worse. And I did pass out. I did pass out a second time. But that wasn't the bar because I was already hurting at that level. That was, hey, I'm hurting at this level, and now puking has caused it to be exponentially worse. So again, not the worst natural one I've ever had, but it was definitely up there. I just thinking about that. But where do you want to even go in the journey next, man? Because I feel like the migraine thing we've kind of hashed out in several different places. But I did want to touch on anybody who may be naive and not listen to us talk about it before, at least know that we have them and go through that.
So you left off with, you know, you're doing the GameStop thing, you're careering it up. You and Sarah are becoming a unit and not just individual people.
Yeah.
Your dad's still working, playing music, doing his thing. You're enjoying your time with the band. What happens next?
So, with great power comes great responsibility. You know that line. GameStop started being really good to me, and I climbed the ranks really fast. I'm a really good salesperson, not to suck my own dick on this podcast, but I could, sell ice to an Eskimo or whatever the fucking saying is. I don't know, but GameStop at that time was about two things: getting Game Informer subscriptions and getting the fucking pre-orders. Those two things were how you made your name, and if you could do it well, they'd promote you. Well, I wanted a promotion bad because I liked that taste of what I thought was success, I guess, at that time, and we're going to dive deeper into the term success here a bit too. But so they gave me third key. So I now am what Sarah was when I met her. Sarah gets transitioned to assistant manager, and Liz is at the top. This all comes from a big shakeup where the guy who was supposed to take assistant manager, no one wanted to work for. So we all literally mutinied and said, no, if you don't move him to this other store and bring somebody else in, we're not doing it. Him moving over to this other store by force, by our forcing his hand essentially, caused me to get the promotion, which was, Was some of my motivation to get him out of the store selfish? Sure. But it was also because I knew the store was going to collapse if he was running it. He was a mess. This guy was having mental breakdowns on the weekly. His dad was having to come in and rescue him from shit that did not need to be brought up in the workplace. Oh, my girlfriend did this to me. Woe is me. Have a mental episode, And it was like, if you're this unstable, man, you can't be assistant manager and have to delegate to people. It's not going to work. And
Right.
Sarah, again, bless her, she wanted it. She wanted to be in that role. She had essentially done the assistant manager thing. Of course, her getting the assistant manager gig turned into her being essentially store manager and our store manager just fucking off. But that's for her show that you guys have heard, the first episode of The Voice of Survival. She retells some of that. But so like I said, with great power comes great responsibility, and the error of my ways, because I thought my friends were my friends, and I started letting shit happen on my watch. And I'm letting more and more happen on my watch. I'm being more lax. I'm being a little cavalier with how much I give a fuck about whatever. And loss prevention came in, and there was a big sting. They had been watching people who I worked with steal hundreds of thousands of dollars in games by not accepting trade-ins from people, keeping the high-valued trade-ins, and then trading them in under a different account, keeping that money, and then pre-ordering all the games they wanted. Clever operation. I'm honestly fucking gangster hustle. You gotta, some level of that grime is like, okay, like you played the system. GameStop is shitty. We all know it's the fucking corporate mecca of evil, and that's now kind of sounds Robin Hood-esque, but it cost me my job. And it also cost me a lot of connection to Sarah. She really resented me because she almost lost her job. Because it was on her watch, too, that I was letting things happen. But because I was letting them happen when she wasn't there, that's the big difference. She didn't know it was happening on her watch, and I put her job at risk. And it was bad, man. It fractured the friendships for everybody that was working at that place, and it was extremely rough for a while. I went and did a couple years at Office Max, and that was a learning experience, just working in sales, selling computers. I can sell to anybody. That job was cool because you made commissions for every computer you sold. You got a little extra on your fucking kickback. So I was really good at that shit, man. I really loved it, and I'm glad we're hearing the story because I sort of told this a little bit, I think on a recent JIC, but so I'm working at Office Max, and it's Thanksgiving, and my uncle pulls me into a room. My mom's sister's husband, okay, pulls me into a room, and he says, hey, man, I have a proposition for you. We're about to move home, and I'm going to be taking over this position at Carter's Furniture, which is where a lot of our family members have worked throughout the years, and we want you to do sales. And I was like, fuck yes, I'll sell furniture till the goddamn cows come home. All about it. I'll sell furniture. You can't keep furniture in there as much as I'm going to sell this furniture. Like, I was all about it. He said, here's the only thing, though. I'm going to have you work 30 days in the warehouse so you get a feel for what those guys have to go through. So when you're out selling shit, you never put these guys in a situation they can't handle. Okay? So I leave Office Max, immediately take this job. It's the early part of winter. I'm going to start working in this fucking warehouse for a month. A month turns into 2 months, turns into 6 months, turns into 1 year, turns into 2 years. And I've had enough. And my fucking family has been lying to me for 2 years about this job that they're telling me and stringing me along I'm going to get. I was told they were going to make a whole new store for me to run because they had new positions coming up and they needed somebody like me. I was also the guy who was genuinely helping and problem solving as a delivery driver now in this 2 years' time, being able to solve any problem these fucking idiot salespeople threw at us, and doing everything. And I had a great partner, Nash, and he and I had amazing times together and created an amazing bond. He's a friend and a human that I wish I could see more, and he lives in central Illinois. I don't. I'm barely home, so it's hard, So the 2 year thing, man, and getting strung along, and like my aunt and my uncle lying to me, lying to Sarah, lying to my dad, lying to my sisters, lying to my mom lying to me. Everybody's in on this secret that I'm not ever going to get this job. I'm chasing something that does not exist. And I'm not privy to the game until I'm privy to the game, and I lost it. And one day I went into Rich's office, and I'm like, I'm fucking sick of it. You're either going to give me the shot at being your sales guy, or I'm out the fucking door, and I know it doesn't matter to you, but I'm fucking done. And I walked out that day. And he called me and was like, hey, man, I'm so sorry. Like, I know things got heated. We're trying. Like, there's more to the story than this. Whatever, we're going to need to talk. I was like, okay, whatever. Same day that this fucking blow-up happens, Sarah hits me up, and she goes, hey, David, that's her brother, just said that the Horseshoe Casino is hiring. And he wants you to work there because he thinks you'd love it. And he knows how miserable you are at the factory, or at Carter's Furniture. And I said, okay, it's math. It's also 2 hours away. I'm going to have to change my whole life. I don't know if I'm quite ready to do that. Like, I've started to grow roots in my hometown of Hoopston here, like, and it's my life. So I take a long, hard thought about it, and I apply. And they accept me, and they say, okay, you're going to come at this day, and you're going to take a math test. If you pass the math test, you're in. It's a math test and essentially a live audition where you do like a fun little like game and show you can entertain people, and then that's it. I go and I do it. I nail the audition. I ace the math test. They give me the job, and my life is ready to change. And I couldn't let it go, man. I could not let the fact that my family had strung me along for 2 years go, and I verbally attacked them in multiple platforms, whether it was through phone calls or on Facebook or whatever it was. I wanted the world to know these people were real villains, you know? Like, if you can consider yourself family to someone and lie to them like that on such a grandiose scale and have so many different elaborate ways to get out of what you've promised, it almost becomes like an art of deception. And that, man, it taught me so much. That's a pivotal me learning that you can trust people, but you also have to trust your instincts when, you know, things aren't right. And I knew I shouldn't have worked for my family. Like, I fucking knew better. But
what was their justification?
Well, there was none, because even to this day, I have no justification. But, like, off air after this, I'll tell you how the universe kind of karmatically paid them back. But for the listeners, just know that while I can sit here and talk about how they wronged me and how at the time it really greatly hurt me, because here I am now, I've had to now move my life. These people were ensuring me that I was going to get a sales job and I could buy my first home and that I could buy my first car and I could do all these things because I was going to be the moneymaker. I was going to be them changing it up. And, they want to say it's politics and all this other stuff, and I called bullshit, and ultimately, that decision, though, was the best decision in my life. Like, it might have been the hardest, most painful thing I went through with learning a lesson, and being able to really, like, look back and go, man, if you would have just trusted your fucking guts sooner, But, of course, if I would have trusted my guts sooner, we might not be here.
Right.
So, in the timeline, that's about 2011 when I leave to go to Horseshoe, and it's, like, December 2011 into the new year of 2012, and I remember the first week of January 2012, I started at Horseshoe Casino. Like, I was on the floor. I was one of the first people out of my class. I worked my ass off. I was in that class for 5 weeks. It was a 12-week class. I was one of 3 people that crammed it in 5 and auditioned and got the job and was making money and doing it, And behind the scenes, man, here's something that not a lot of people know. So David's class, Sarah's brother's class, when he was working at Horseshoe, they paid him. Paid training. Okay, so he was making the same that everybody else on the boat was making every time he was training. It's fat money. Fat money to be sitting in class for 4 hours a day, right? So my class was the next class, and we were also the first class ever to not get paid to be trained. So I have no income at this point. And I had a little bit of leftover money from vacation and shit from working at Carter's that they had paid me in my last paycheck and whatnot, saved up. And I was like, okay, I got to get 6 weeks and get through the 6 weeks and pay my shit and do this and also be okay on the other side to start this job. And I did the fucking dumbest thing, and I don't know why it worked, but it did. One of my buddies that I had met at this class, just one night after class, said, hey, I know they said that they don't encourage it, but since we're not employees, we can do it. Do you want to go into Horseshoe and actually see what it's about? Because I'd never been there. And I was like, oh my God, you want to go gamble at the place we're going to work at? No. He's like, come on, just like one game. Okay. So we did that like multiple times. Nobody knew us. No one on the floor was in the training facility, you know? And I mean, sure, they would be checking the cameras, but they're not checking the cameras for people who were in training. They don't care. So we were going in, and I mean, we were scooping up hundreds of dollars a night once a week for 5 weeks. And I stayed good, man. I really did. I used gambling to get through. And true story, as soon as I became a dealer, anytime I went to gamble, I fucking lost. It's like as soon as I became a dealer, the universe was like, nope, cut it off. You don't get that shit anymore. You know the secrets. Like, fuck you. The Horseshoe, man, that's a chapter. That's a chapter that's worth kind of opening up because immediately I'm on thirds. I'm working grave shifts. I'm working 9 p.m. to 7 a.m., sometimes 9 p.m. to 11 a.m., depending on how things fell out. It was really hard on my psyche. I was spending so much time alone. I was literally watching Netflix in bed while Sarah slept every night when I came home from work. And then as soon as she got up, it was good night, and I would go to bed. And that was literally all I was seeing of her. And slowly but surely, the person that at the time I was, the Nate that I was before you even knew me, is getting chipped away. And there's real darkness brewing. And there are real bad decisions I'm starting to make in my life actively because I don't care, because I'm ready for the train to fucking end. Mm-hmm. My psyche had changed genuinely. Like, I don't know how to describe this to people, but humans are not meant to work at night. I can't. I know some people might be like, oh, buck up, you fucker. Like, you can do it. But mentally speaking, they don't realize the toll it takes on changing your psyche to sleep while everyone else is awake and be awake. And especially in a job like the casino where I'm watching people lose thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars a night. People losing more money in one hand of blackjack than my entire collective debt today. Okay? And it killed me. It's like, what is the fucking point of life if this is all I'm doing? The band was stopped. I couldn't really do it that much because it was 2 hours away, so I'm driving every now and again to have a half-ass practice and throw one show together a year, and it was dying. The band was over. I had to come to terms with that, and I was losing it. I really was. At the same time, Sarah and I had gotten really lucky and got kind of swept up into this Ellis Mania thing and Ellis fam and shit like that. Jason Ellis had a show on fucking Sirius XM, and Sarah, being a fucking phenomenal piano player, covered one of their songs and like got radio coverage, and then like people are coming to me, so I'm like acting as her manager now, which is a new position for me that I've never had before. And then when she did the Machine Head thing, man, like for those of you who don't know, Sarah played Darkness Within, a Machine Head song on piano, all the solos included, 100% note for note accurate. And on a shitty cell phone, I posted it, and it got like 10,000 views in a day. It was the most viral thing I've ever been a part of. But then I had to start being her manager as well. And again, Sarah and I's relationship shift again. And now I'm not just her boyfriend, partner, best friend. I'm manager. I have to help make decisions. Machine Head wants to meet her. I have to call Machine Head's fucking manager and set it up. And then I have to call the tour manager and set it up. And I'm just a fucking dude from Hoopston who's done none of this shit. And I'm so a fucking tiny minnow in shark-infested waters at this point. Mm-hmm. And I'm just trying to pretend that I am the great white out there, you know, and just acting like I know what I'm doing, acting like I talk the lingo and shit, and being just. And you know what I learned? Here's the most fucked up thing about the whole story of getting into the world of talking to people who are in the industry and who actually do this thing professionally. And you hear this thing all the time, they're just people, but they really just are. You just talk to them normal. You just say what you want and what your intentions are and what you mean, and they understand and interpret it and give you a quick yes or no. There's no bullshit. There's no hidden smoke and mirrors. It might be 10% who you know, but if you're talented, your talent will rise to the top and you're going to be visible, and I think that's something I learned from the whole experience. So we were making friends in the Jason Ellis show and all that while I'm going through my depression, and these people are seeing me indulge in that darker side of myself. And we go to Vegas for 3 different years in a row, and it's a party environment. And the first year I'm getting shit-faced drunk and hating things, and the second year I'm blowing money that I didn't even have. And then the third year we met like a lot of cool, really fucking nice people, and were introduced to dabs. And I was reintroduced to this glorious thing called cannabis in a more grandiose scale. And, to really be quite honest, that third trip to Vegas might have saved my life. We had been hanging out with our friends, the Cutnos, and we were like cool with them. We met this guy named Shuddy Boy, who was on this show called the Mad Scientist Party Hour, which is a podcast, and we have history with them, and they've had shit a part of our Journey into Comics show and whatnot, and Shuddy was at one point a host. But one of the nights I was there, I got a migraine and was offered some weed, just to say it bluntly. No pun intended.
I see what you did there.
I didn't even mean to, but I was offered some smoke, and I said sure, and I smoked, and the migraine melted. I physically... You want to talk about how you said you never forget the first migraine you have? I've never physically felt anything like the first time one has melted out of my head, because it's totally unique, right? And I don't want to bust you out or anything. If you have or have not experienced that, is your own journey. But for me, I realized that I don't want to listen. While I was working at Carter's, another part of who I was taking a lot of Vicodin, because me and my partner Nash are 2 dudes. Just 2 dudes. And Tyler, cut it real, man. I don't got the biggest fucking muscles, bro. Like, I'm kind of a little dude, to be real, okay? Me and my partner Nash are about the same size, and we're moving 750-pound fucking curio cabinets that have granite tops. Just he and I, 2 people. And killing ourselves. And my body, to this day, has problems because of Carter's Furniture. That was another reason I was so mad with my family, because they permanently changed I fell really bad one time when I was there. We were moving some stuff on the floor, and somebody had left something hanging out of an aisle, and I didn't see it, and it tripped me, and a couch fell and almost decapitated me. But my elbow took the brunt of the fall, and I had this humongous fucking gigantic softball in my elbow. I'm walking around all fucking beat to tar and whatnot. And I started doing the Vicodin thing, man. Everyone was like, oh, just have a couple Vicodin. Just take a Vicodin. It's not a big deal. I can get you a couple Vicodins and a Vicodin. Everybody had Vicodin. It's fucking Vicodin party. Everybody was taking it at that point in the fucking Carter's Furniture. So I'm taking it too. I'm taking 2 a day, 3 a day. Then I'm taking 2 and 3 at a time sometimes, And sure, it killed the migraines when I got really bad, but it was also making me feel not like me anymore. And so when I started smoking the cannabis again and really going for it, I was like, you know what? This is the way to be. Like, if I can be healthy and feel okay and not die and smoke this, and if I have a migraine, I know it's going to take care of it, that's a smart thing. My health is important. So it's the path I took. Like, I don't really care. If people want to judge me shittily or think negative, I think we're in 2019. I think we're in a progressive enough country to realize that, like, cannabis is helpful, folks. Like, let's be real,
The reefer madness is not a real thing. Let's just move on from 1920s fucking socio-political doctrine. No one's got the reefer madness.
Never. No one has ever had a reefer madness. The only thing you get is munchie madness.
Yeah.
Or the yawns.
Fucking Funyun madness.
Funyun madness. Oh my god, I love it. I love Funyuns.
I kind of am in a state where I permanently have Funyun madness. So, if any quick side note, if anyone stops by LaFiCon, an event that Journey into Comics Network is hosting this Saturday and Sunday here in Lafayette, Indiana, you will see me with a bag of Funyuns, and I will not be ashamed of it.
Fucking A, Funyun life. Funyuns are good, man. They're the bomb.com.
I love that onion-flavored corn.
I thought you were going to say if anybody came to LaFiCon and brought you Funyuns, they would be your new best friend.
Oh, that'd be cool, too.
And I'm going to say the same thing, but OG Nestle Butterfingers.
Yes!
We don't need to go on that tangent of train. We've bitched about it enough.
Have
I
we?
gave you the line. Yeah, I gave you the line to some goodness, though. I got to tap on that real good.
And I'm going to be sending you some cash flow probably tomorrow for that real good.
Oh, that's perfect, because then I'm going to be able to pick it up probably tomorrow, and then I'll be able to bring it to you to Loafy Town. Yeet. Woot. So, where do you want to go from here, man? I feel like I kind of just spiraled into a lot of shit. I spiraled into my depression and fucking Horseshoe. That was bad.
So at what point do you leave Horseshoe?
Man, it's really weird the way fate works and how, remember when I said stepping stones, and like every process leads to something, and I truly have been fortunate enough, and I wish I was smart enough to write every instance down, but there have been 5,000 times on the low end that I have experienced something where, without question, I am in the right place at the right time. I was meant to be where I was meant to be, when I was meant to be, how I was meant to be, because it led to the next step, which led to the next step. I mean, I got to perform on stage with the band Death Death Die, who was from the Jason Ellis show, at the Joint in Las Vegas in front of fucking 4,000 people. Stoned out of my mind. It was the craziest fucking experience. It was also the last night that band was a band. I was on stage for that. Like, how the fuck does that even happen to me? I'm just fucking guy, right? But those guys are also who inspired me to podcast. They all had podcasts, and they were starting to do this podcast. And Sarah just looked at me and said, you could do that. You can talk. You and Brandon talked for hours downstairs in the basement about wrestling. You could do that. And it just started ticking to me. I was like, oh, what about that? And then, you guys have probably heard the story before, but like Josh Richmond from the Jason Ellis show, he left that show. He's doing his own podcast. Josh figures it out. He was trying to figure his life out, trying to figure what kind of podcast he wanted to do out. He decided to go the route of having like a show with a bunch of different ideas and concepts to see which one best worked. One of those things was the Incepticast. And I put Journey into Comics episode 1. I sent it to Josh. I was like, hey, man, I don't know if you're even going to enjoy this, but what do you think? And he was like, I fucking love it. Can I interview you? So now, again, I'm just this fucking nobody who is now on a podcast, who's got some notoriety on a show, or from a guy who has a following from a show that's got hundreds of thousands of followers around the globe. What the fuck? This is all happening a little too fast. And, you know, Journey into Comics almost died after that first episode because I needed the board. I didn't have a board to record with. I had to go to my dad's house to do the show at that time, and it was winter, so I can't travel in the winter when the snow's bad, and that was a particularly terrible year, so 3 months of no podcasting, and I kind of forgot about it almost. And then I went back to my dad's house for the first time, and I saw the board, and I sat down, and I recorded the second episode, and then we started talking, and he gave me access to a different board, and then I recorded the next episodes, and then, you know, here we are. Again, the spark from Sarah telling me, do podcasting. You might be good at it. I really believed in what she said. I really did. And I needed, listen, Draxus not being a band anymore at the time traumatized me because I wanted it to be the thing that made me successful. I wanted the first thing I created to be the thing. And now I learned that, you know, that doesn't really work. Sometimes you create a lot of different things, and until you find the right thing, it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. So I needed an outlet to talk. I needed an outlet to get my inner demons out. I was just on the cusp of leaving Horseshoe, and Draxus gets offered a show. So I'm doing the podcasting. We hadn't really had any shows. We get offered a show. We say, yes, we're going to do it. So months in advance, I go to my job at Horseshoe, and I'm like, look, this one specific day, I can't work. We have a show. It's our band's reunion show. We haven't played in over a year. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be a good time. Like, I can't miss this for the world. I don't ask a lot from you guys. I don't really have very many points. I know it's it's Memorial Day weekend, and it's a holiday. You're going to want to double point me and all that bullshit. But I need this day off. And they said, cool, we got you. No big deal. So we get the schedule a month in advance, and guess who's on the schedule? Me, baby. Me. And I am not thrilled. And I called the shift supervisor and I chewed her out. I was like, you lied to me. You told me I was not going to be on this. She said, well, it was an oversight. We'll get it taken care of. They just changed my time. They didn't take me off the day. So I'm like, okay, well, I've booked this show. I've hyped this show. It's my band's possibly last show. It's possibly the last time I'm going to be playing music with my father. Fuck it, I quit. And I left. I was done. And that was that. You know? That was that. And I went and I played the show, and it was beautiful, and it was a great thing. And our last song was Master of Puppets, which was beautifully fitting. And but then I really started diving deep in 2014 into Journey into Comics, and Brandon getting a part of that spark. Tyler and everybody else knows that the network as you see here is not built if it wasn't for Brandon doing this. So, and being a part of it. So I have to extra carve out a spot for him, and he probably even to this day doesn't realize how much I find his importance to this whole thing, because he sparked me to really, again, Sarah sparked me to believe in myself a little bit. Brandon sparked me to believe in myself because I felt like we were really good and we could do whatever we wanted to do, and we were setting goals and accomplishing them. We want to do a 100th episode live. We fucking did it. We were on point, you know? That spawns the network and all this shit, you know. But I don't know. Where should we? I feel like I'm off on another tangent of bambling.
No, you're good. So you've left Horseshoe. You've
Horse shit.
You've left horse shit. We've had horse glue, and now horse shit, and you're jumping
later. You're
in,
gonna get horse force.
maybe. Or maybe a horse show. We don't know yet. We'll see where the journey takes us. But so you just up and quit Horseshoe, and you decide to dive feet first into Journey into Comics. What was Sarah's take on you just quitting?
Well, she was obviously nervous and wanted to know what we were going to do for money, and I immediately found another job that sucked 2 years of my life away and taught me a life lesson, which is part of the fucking experience. So it's crazy how seismic the year 2014 is for me. Draxus ends, Journey into Comics starts, I leave Horseshoe, which leaving Horseshoe is me abandoning pretty much all the friends I have in Northwest Indiana, because literally the only people I knew at that time were Sarah's family and people from Horseshoe. That's fucking it, man. I knew no one else, okay?
Okay.
Man without a country. I met this guy, Anthony, while I worked at Horseshoe, and he's a fucking awesome dude. And he started getting into Journey into Comics and liked the show, and he also loved that Brandon was into games. So he told Brando, hey, man, or he told me to tell Brando, hey, man, I know this girl, she's selling a bunch of classic systems and shit. You guys should pick it up or tell Brandon to get it. So Brandon came up. We made it a weekend. We went to this place, Bombers. We meet this beautiful woman, and, man, life again changes. Fucking unexpectedly, this person, it walks into my life, and here we are again in the universe without me knowing at that time how important that meeting was. The universe set in motion events that we are still riding the fucking roller coaster of, baby, let me say. So this girl walks in. Her name's Veronica. She's kind of bummed out. She's really dolled up. She looks great. But she's trying to put on a happy face, but she's a little bit stressed. And I'm like, hey, what's up? And she's like, oh, my dog pissed on my kid's car seat, and my husband was screaming at me and said we had to get rid of our dog, and I love my dog, and we just had this kid, and everything's overwhelming and all this, and I have to sell all my games because we don't have a lot of money, and it was like, holy shit, you just dumped a lot on me. We just met, but that's cool because I can take it and I can listen to what you're going through, and let's just have this fun interaction. So she sells the games to Brando. We eat at Bombers. It's fine. We both go our separate ways. And then Veronica and I start to become friends more and more and more and more and more. And she kind of became a staple in our lives in such a way where it's permanent, man. She's not going anywhere. The three of us are thick as thieves. And that decision came with a lot of, I can't really say too many things, but we have to be better than ourselves, and we see that the way things used to be for all of us individually as people weren't working. So the friendship that we all have together is just, it's a bond that is, I mean, we've traveled with Veronica and done amazing different things and met people and had crazy experiences. And then, of course, one day, okay, so Sarah and V, they had their own little side journey where they were playing music together in this thing called Diamond and Fang, where they were playing a whole bunch of music, whether it was like The Doors or Pixies or Pink Floyd or just any kind of thing, Postal Service, whatever. And they were just playing jams. And they liked it, and it was pretty good, and V could sing really well. She was a classically trained opera singer. And one day I remember Sarah was like, I don't want to do these shitty songs anymore that we're doing. I don't want to play music that I don't really have my heart in. I need something that I really believe in, and I have an idea. And she pitched me the version 1 of what would become Walk Among Us.
Okay.
Again, Sarah is the spark. She said, now look, Nate, you played drums for, okay, at this point I was back 4 years. I was 28. So I'd played guitar for about 12 years at that point. She said, now I know, you're a really good guitar player. You've been playing for a long time, but you're done playing guitar. You're going to learn drums. So early in our story, if you'll recall, in school, I played drums a little bit, Mm-hmm. So I kind of had an idea, loose idea. I had dicked around in Draxis. I actually wrote a couple songs on the drums and performed them when we recorded in the studio. So I had a kind of an idea my way around the kit and whatnot. And, getting thrown into those waters of like, you're going to have to learn an instrument. And I didn't really know the purpose. And, really, when she pitched Walk Among Us, it was, we're going to play one show. We're going to do an entire album, one show, and that's it. We won't do anything else. We're done. Okay, cool. We practiced for an entire year on this concept. Whole year before we even tried to play live. And we weren't even looking to perform live when our first show fell in our lap.
Okay.
It's crazy. So V was on Facebook and saw somebody post about the Ataris coming to town, and they were looking for opening acts, and there was this guy, and she told me to message, hey, maybe we could do it. We talked to the band, Rob, Sarah. Okay, they want to do it. We're going to play our first show. We had like 8 songs, maybe 10 at that point. So we reach out to the promoter. I'm like, look, I know this is a really weird thing, and I'm like still trying to figure out how to tell people what we even are, because we don't have guitars. So people, you say that, and it's like people forget what music is. It can be any instrument. It doesn't matter, And they're, guitars, why do you survive? Well, okay, pianos can do that too. Anyways, so I hit the guy up, and he said, sure, we'd love to have you, but you need to sell 30 tickets at $12 a ticket.
Okay.
And you're going to keep, I think he said I think it was half of it or under half or something like that. I can't really remember exactly how much we kept, but we sold 45 tickets. We had the biggest draw of that show, even bigger than the Ataris, who played to 4 people that were not us. We actually had to leave. So the Ataris played to no one, which, whatever, they're the Ataris. They've already had success. But we made money on our first show. We actually sold tickets and gave the venue money. And he said, did you take your money out of this yet? And I said, yep, I did. This is your cut. He was like, holy shit, thank you. Cool. Boom. Then we get another show, and then another show, and then another show. And here we are. I don't know if you have questions about Walk Among Us. I feel like we've talked about that a lot. So,
well,
up to you, man.
The one thing that I'm not educated on is at what point does Walk Among Us change from version 1.0 to version 2.0 or whatever designation you want to give it now?
Sure. So first version of the band, Veronica was just singing, Sarah was just playing piano, Rob was drumming, Rob was playing bass, and I was drumming. Mm-hmm. So, and then of course we were all trying to harmonize. We were doing Michael Graves era quote unquote Misfits songs. Those technically on drums are a hell of a lot harder than the Danzig era, So for me, I'm grateful that I cut my teeth on those songs because it made me a better musician. Maybe they aren't better songs per se, and maybe the fan groups and all that shit are going to come out and be like, you can't be a fucking Gravesdigger. He's cat shit. There's a lot of hate for him because Michael Graves, politically speaking, is very fucked up. But so we cut our teeth on the Famous Monsters thing, but we were like, I don't know, 9 months into this, and we were really getting into like these songs. We were starting to really jam. We could come into a practice and all of us jam, and V was singing really well, and it was good. It was going smooth. And V's like, maybe I should play ukulele. No, that's not going to work. We got to find something. And Sarah's like, what about another piano? And I was like, yeah, and we should put a distortion on that shit, like a fuzz pedal. So boom, the dirty piano was created, and we tried it at practice, and we never went back. V loved it. She started to feel more confident, and her vocals got even better after she started playing the keys because she didn't have to worry about just fronting. She could be doing, she always has something to do when she's on stage, you know what I'm saying? So that's when we shifted there, and then, we played shows for so long, year and a half, almost 2 years, and then late June, Rob left. And when he left, we decided we don't want another bass player. We don't really need another bass player. Sarah can be the bass player because she can just play more low end on the piano. V is also already playing bass notes and the bass lines on her keys just with the distortion. So we could do it. And we'd already played a couple shows as a 3-piece anyways. So, and here we are. And I feel like, from June of last year to now, not to like number brag or hype or whatever, but when last June started, we had like 1,500 Facebook likes. As of today, we have 4,500 Facebook likes. So, apparently Rob leaving made us do something right. I don't know what it was exactly, but, it might have a lot to do with the fact that the girls are fucking smoking hot and play these songs every Friday, and people love hearing these songs, and every time they check one off the list, people are like, fuck yeah, I was waiting for that one, and it's cool, man.
I love
we're the only...
I love that you guys do that every Friday because, like, I always see it, like, in the middle of my day when I'm just wanting to, like, take a couple minutes to just detach from reality and... Like, God, I hate social media, but it's so, like, you can't escape from it today.
Totally.
At least where society's at today. So, I'll open my phone, I'll swipe through my news feed, and because I've watched so many of your guys' videos now, it's always towards the top, and I always stop and take time to listen to it. I might not enjoy all the songs, but I like seeing Sarah and Veronica be enthusiastic and truly love just that just that little bit of time that it takes to do that video. It's like they're both so passionate about it, and it's just them, so they're feeding off of each other, and it's really fun for me as a fan of you guys. Not just musically, but as people, it's really fun for me, as that guy, to get to watch them do that every Friday.
Man, I'll make sure to pass those words on. Those very kind words. That thing, it's more of Sarah's story to tell, but her dad really inspired us to do the Casual Fiend Friday videos. Sarah was really struggling because we were kind of spinning our tires a little bit. We had some success on Instagram and got a pretty decent following or whatever, but we just weren't connecting with our audience. We felt like we were just throwing lawn darts at the air, and people weren't coming to shows as much as we wanted and stuff. And Sarah's dad's like, why don't you just do like a version, like a little bit of a stripped down version with just you and Veronica, and smile in them and stuff, because people like smiling ladies. And literally, that's the only things he said, and they've taken it and ran, One thing to mention, as far as I know, and I'm not trying to, braggadociousness, but, we're the only tribute to the Misfits that have done all 54 original tracks live. We've played them all live at one time or another. And now the girls are on pace to also have done them all as a Casual Fiend Friday video. So, it's hard. You know, it's funny you say it's like the short amount of time and the quick little video, and I'm the behind the scenes guy that, like, example, the one that's going to go up this week, tomorrow, actually today that this episode's dropping, this Casual Fiend Friday in this Voice Survival podcast. You can listen to a Casual Fiend Friday if you want. Just go to our page because it's blowing up right now. Whatever song they're going to do, I'm not going to spoil it, but like, they did it the day after our last show. We were all dog fucking tired. They did not want to record that video. They were pissed off to like have to do it, but then they were also paid off once they did it. Like, they were mad because they were exhausted, but then when the video was over and they like, do you want to see it? I'm always like, yes, of course I want to be the first person in the world to have seen this video. Like, yes. And they played it, and I was like, holy shit. Like, you guys brought the thunder. I thought you weren't feeling it today. And Sarah was like, I guess. Jerry Lee Lewis inspired me today, you know? And it's just like, it's funny because sometimes it is really a stress and a struggle. And being in this band has been the most rewarding, hardest thing I've ever had to experience. I mean, my two closest friends, as best I can say, in this band, they're females who men prey upon, or at least try to prey upon, which we constantly have to deal with and deflect. There have been crazy situations involving people trying to come upon people when they didn't want it and stuff like that. We don't need to really get into. You know, all those dark things, though, are paid off tenfold in small things like we're driving from a gig after we've killed at the Melody Inn in Indianapolis, and the girls are both in the truck next to me asleep. And they're blissful because we just slayed. And I know that, like, the energy, like, I guess the way I'm saying it is like, somebody, who was it? We just did this show this past week, and this guy said to me that there's no three people he's ever met that has the kind of chemistry that we have on stage and off stage. And, you know, on stage, we aren't just playing for the audience. When the three of us gear up and we're in the moments of Walk Among Us and we're in the trenches, we're playing those songs for each other. Mm-hmm. Those songs, more than any person, more than you, more than all of our fans will ever know, those songs specifically mean so much to our private journey that playing them is like therapy. It's different, man. It's hard to describe. It's a very special thing that we have that I never would have expected to be doing this. If you would have told me, kid me, who I would be, like, I don't know about all that.
Well, I think, you know, obviously a feeling like that's hard to describe, but you kind of hinted at it earlier. You know, you don't necessarily stop living for yourself, but you start, it's almost like an out-of-body experience. You become a collective unit, and then we, instead of I, need to do this to be happy. This makes you happy, this makes her happy, this makes her happy, and as long as, and I say it all the time, that the most important thing in life is to do what makes you happy. You know, I've had, and I look at it, you know, I'm not an old guy, you're not an old guy, but I've had a pretty tumultuous working career, much like yourself, and I've had the privilege of working with people who are either just starting their work or their working career, their professional career, or are restarting their professional career. And I may not be the most knowledgeable guy on a lot of things, and I may not have experienced, 70 years of life, but I have an interesting perspective on things, and I take a lot of pride in giving other people that perspective. And, to hype up on, or to hype you guys a little bit more, I have argued with people for years that I came to a point in my life where I realized that that truly money does not make you happy, and you have to find what makes you happy, and you have to fucking do it. And there's not anything else that matters in life other than your health and the people you care about's health. You just got to do what fucking makes you happy. That's all that matters. And I mean, I have fought tooth and nail with people that you know, and I stand by that statement today. And then I look at you and Veronica and Sarah, and you guys get to do regularly what makes you happy together, which continues to make you happy. What more can you ask? What more can you ask for?
If we're being honest, can we ask for a slightly less shithead of a child?
Well,
he's 5, man. It's rough right now. I'm just being real. He's got an attitude. It's the old soul in me wants to curb that attitude how you think he should get that attitude curbed, but I'm not allowed to be that person, so I have to check that emotion.
not everybody responds to that either, but you know, my daughter's almost 3 going on 30, so I'm not far behind you.
Well, I mean, and to be honest, like, to get into this for a fucking second, like, I've been in Ollie's life actively as a parental figure of sorts since he was a year and a month old. Okay, and not like directly, but I'm just one of those natural pick up the fucking slack and do the thing that needs to be done humans when I'm in a situation. So, when he was younger, some of the shit he did, he would get a little tap on the bottom and that lesson learned type thing, but he hasn't been like spanked at all in the past 2 years, I think. And well, aside from when V does it, and when she does it, he is really, really fucked up. So,
well, I think we need to take, not necessarily just you and I, but I think we as a society need to kind of grow up and make the distinction that there is a difference between slight physical motivation to not continue to make poor choices and child abuse. If I am if I am regularly beating my daughter's ass with a belt or with an extension cord or with, I was raised by my grandparents, so I had to go get my own. I had to get my own switch. I know what that feels like.
Goddamn right, bro.
But never looking back, this show is all about looking back on your or telling your life's journey. Never once do I look back at any of the discipline I got and think, man, that really fucked me up. Now, statistically and scientifically, there might be some underlying effects there, but I was never abused as a kid physically.
No, me neither, man. I mean, one thing to say about the discipline thing, sometimes my dad used a belt if I did something really stupid. I mean, here to cut. I'll tell you the realest story right now. I don't even think Sarah knows the story. Nobody. So, I was in 3rd grade, and this is right, like I said, the second summer after my parents had officially divorced. So my mom is just getting ready to, or has just married my stepdad. And I had an obsession with collecting basketball cards.
Okay.
I also did not have a job because I was a kid. I also was very crafty and always listened to what my family was saying and remembered that my grandparents never locked their house. I also remember that my grandparents' son, my uncle, had all these fucking extra cards that I wanted, and extras and extras and extras of extras. And so many extras, how could he even know, right? And then I got greedy. I straight up was stealing basketball cards from my uncle for like a couple months until I got busted. And I got a belt to the ass, man. I learned my lesson, and guess what? I never did again.
You didn't steal basketball cards.
Or anything like that for that matter, or anything for that matter, because I did not want my ass beat, right? So it was a lesson. But on the flip side, if I did something stupid that pissed my dad off, like not listening consistently for an hour, and he tries to get me to brush my teeth, and I keep shaking him and shit, You know what the worst punishment was, more than the belt was?
Silent
Go
treatment.
stand in that corner. Nose to the corner. Go stand in that corner. You'll be done standing in that corner when I tell you. Gives you time to have perspective. Why wasn't I listening? Why the fuck did I end up in this corner? Shit.
It puts your mind in the prison. Like,
Yes, it does.
like fuck. What am I gonna do? I'm stuck here. I could be here for days.
Yeah, of course, it was only like 15 minutes, but it feels like an eternity for a kid, so it was
Right.
torture. It really was. But again, and I tell my dad this to this day. I mean, I probably will talk about it at some point later, how I referenced it now, but like, I'm grateful for how he raised me, man.
Mm-hmm.
I would not be the man I am today, and I feel like I'm a man with a lot of self-preservation and integrity. Like, I learned a lot of who I am from him because he didn't have a quit in him. He didn't know quit. He didn't give up or stop ever and didn't want to, like, and I mean, I admire that. And like I said, and how he raised me to learn lessons. And, I saw really gentle sides of my dad a lot of times too, behind the scenes in different situations as well, that gave me perspective. So, yeah, I'm grateful for how I was raised in that regard.
So I think that brings up. I mean, that's a perfect segue. You brought up Ollie. You brought up how you were raised. How has Ollie becoming a part of your life affected you? How has having to fill a parental role affected Nate?
Man, that is amazing. Okay, so
And
first of all,
I
go
say
ahead.
that under the realm that I'm a strong believer of blood doesn't make you family.
Bingo.
Because you and I have talked about that at length privately.
Loyalty makes you family.
Yes.
Blood makes you related.
Yep. So there's a lot of instances in all of our lives where we can look at people and say that's my family, or they do something for you and just subconsciously in your mind you think that's what family does for each other. And for someone that is, eventually going to be our age, trying to figure their lives out.
Having a podcast and hopefully taking this network over.
Well, possibly. I mean, I think that's a reasonable expectation to set. But like, I commend. Every time that we've talked about Ollie, or Veronica and Skylar and I have talked about Ollie, I get a lot of satisfaction because you are consistently a part of this young boy's life, and you are being a positive influence. And statistically, those are few and far between in today's society. So let's get to the nitty-gritty of the Ollie and Nate party.
Okay, so I want to say one thing that that you lead by example, and that's something my dad taught me, is just to be like, I guess it's hard too. I do have a lot of my dad in me, and there are times when I get shitty with Ollie or kind of sass him back when he's being extra, especially now. He's so extra lippy because he's so fucking smart. He just knows too much. He knows too much, and he thinks he knows too much, and so I've had to learn to be incredibly patient. That's been a thing. But like with Oliver, he is a sponge, and he is, if you will sit down and explain something to him, he'll never forget it. If you take the time to make him understand, he will soak it in. Like, we have very good, and this is a part of some of the strife with parenting him, is that when Veronica's around, he has a different demeanor than when it's just he and I. Mm-hmm. When Veronica's around, he almost reverts back to the baby me thing, and if I do this to Nate, I can just run to mom and she's going to protect me because she does, but because she is teaching me to not let him get a reaction out of me, which is what I'm doing so much better at recently. But like, he knows how to play the game. And when he and I are like, okay, for example, Monday, I was over at their house, and Sarah and I and he and V were all hanging out, and he just got home from his dad's over the weekend, over Easter weekend. And I didn't even say anything to him, because sometimes if you tell him there's a plan, it makes the plan harder. Sometimes you just have to start doing the thing, and then he'll catch on that a thing is happening and join in. So I started building a fire. I fucking love doing that, and it was so nice out, and they live by the lake, so I'm like, I'm just going to build a big-ass fire. There was a lot of shit that had fallen from the winds and stuff over the weekend, so we just gathered up as much of the shit in the yard as we could, built this dope-ass fire. And V and Sarah went to the store and got a bunch of food and shit for us to have for dinner and whatnot. Ollie and I sat around, built the fire. I taught him life lessons, showed him how to do this shit, man, and it was like beautiful. There's no other joy I've known like that. Mm-hmm. Like, and that as an actual dad. I don't actually have blood in that kid. Like, he is not my kid, but he might as well be, because he is so much like me in his attitude and how he responds to things and his ability to really get it. But, the thing that I'm so excited for with Ollie's growth and development coming up is that he's super musically inclined and he wants it.
Hell yeah.
He sits at the piano and noodles for 30 minutes a day, and he's 5. And he makes some pretty okay sounding stuff for a 5-year-old.
Right.
Notice I was not the overzealous dad saying, he made the greatest song in the world.
He's the next Mozart.
It's not that. With a little bit of training from a particular pianist that I know, he might be the next Mozart, honestly. But he's going to have to come into his own. No, Ollie is a really incredibly intelligent, gifted kid who has just been dealt a really unfortunate hand of having kind of a shitty dad. And I had a kind of shitty mom, and I think that's one thing I really sympathize with him about. And another thing that's really fucking weird in the parallel to Oliver and I is that his dad and grandmother and grandfather are using him as a pawn how I was used, and we know it. Like, and Ollie's privy to it. He just straight up said, he's like, Dad was in there talking about you guys, And I'm just like, oh man, like you're a kid and you know that. It's not going to look good in the long run, And I just want to tell Ollie, like, look, he's still your dad. You don't have to like him, but you gotta, or you don't, how's that saying go? You don't gotta like him, but you gotta love him, or some shit, or you don't gotta love him, but you gotta like him. I don't know how the fuck it goes, but I just, I feel for him, and I try to always give him better experiences than I had growing up too, and it's in the little things. It's in the being ever present. It's not in the showering him with gifts and spending crazy amounts of money. It's in the little stuff, man, and it's and it's leading by example. What's really cool is he treats, when he's being genuine and he's not having an attitude fit like he has because he's 5, and he's being genuine, he treats people with so much respect. He seems like a little adult. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Mommy, can I please? Okay, honey. Like, he uses honey because he hears me call the girl honey. So like, he just, that kid has definitely impacted me, man, because it's made me reflect on my journey, kind of like we're doing here today. But then also it's forced me to be better than my parents before me.
So this is totally relevant on more than one kind of stream here. However I should phrase it, I can't right now because we're doing a podcast.
Sure, it happens.
But a very notable blue character from a franchise that we really love in the last couple of years said, he may have been your father, boy, but he wasn't your daddy. And that is one of not only my favorite scenes from all of modern cinema, but it just reaffirms everything that you and I have both just said. Surround yourself with the people that you want to surround yourself with. Recognize the people that are your family, but give, and you don't, like you said with Ollie and, affection, you're not buying him all the, I mean, it's sad that, I got a tangent a little bit, but it's sad that in today's society, the expectation is that you live so far beyond your means to basically make everyone else around you think of you a certain way. But we do it with parents and children and family and everything. Just because someone's your father doesn't mean that they've given you the life lessons and they've been with you, or they've been there for you when you needed them. And you brought up Ollie and Veronica have taught you to be more patient, and that's, being a parent myself, that's one of the things that, I didn't get easy. It took a while before I realized, like, man, she's just a kid. I gotta be
Can't
patient.
Keep blowing your cool, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I can't just stomp my feet and shake my fist in the air and expect a child to, conform to your will. I mean, they're people too. They're not just an object. And obviously, I didn't think of children as an object, but there are people out there.
Saying, though.
There are people out there that think of their children as pawns, as an object in a game that they're playing. And it's sad. It really is sad.
So I was going to say, you were talking, oh, damn it, I had a point in what you just said there. Okay, so you said, that the thing about buying Ollie's affection, and I'm not a fan of that because my mom's side of the family did that. They try to buy my affection, buy my love. Here's gifts, here's that, but they're not present. Then they actively, deceived me, and I learned my lesson. But with Ollie, I do things that are like more to the heart. Like, for example, I wanted to get him some Ninja Turtle stuff. I didn't really want to spend the money on modern Ninja Turtle stuff because it's not that fucking cool.
It's
I had some
lame,
pretty dope
actually.
Ninja Turtle.
Let's just be honest.
It is. But I had actually bought the 2004 reboot Ninja Turtle toys that came out. They did like a new animated series that was pretty good. And I had the entire collection, and I just found it when I was at my dad's like 2 years ago. So I grabbed them all up, and I gave them to Ollie one by one. Here was a new Ninja Turtle. Here's your Donatello, complete with all the fucking gear, all the shit you would want to have. Here's your Splinter with the fucking ooze. Like, I did it up, man, and it meant more to him than the fucking shit he gets for Christmas that I look in his room that still isn't getting used. It's a fucking mess. It's a mess. Kids make messes. But, patience, to get back to that, too, is like, one thing that's really helped me is, and our parents didn't have this, I think the internet is an amazing tool because Veronica will be like, hey, you need to read this article. And she'll send me an article, and it'll be about like, this is how a child's brain is developing at age 5, and this is the things they do and don't have. And empathy is not necessarily one of those things. It doesn't develop till they're about 6.5 or 7. And I'm like, oh, now I fucking get why he doesn't respond to hurting my feelings, because he doesn't know what he's even doing. He's just throwing words. So then it starts to take the sting out of it. So that's been educational. My time with Oliver in my life these past 4 going on 5 years has been extremely educational.
Well, it's got to be, it's got to be rewarding. It's got to... I left a very lucrative career situation so I could spend more time with my child, and there's a lot of people out there that don't have the ability to do that. So from watching Ruby grow up on my cell phone to being able to spend time with her, being able to give baths and put her to bed and make her dinner and all that, like, you get to do all that. So the amount that I feel that I'm rewarded for being able to do that, you have to be cognizant of that as well.
Oh yeah, it's cool too to just be like, making dinner is a mundane thing, but making dinner for the family is not a mundane thing. It's a fucking cool experience that I get to, like, I'm making mashed potatoes and I'm looking at my life going, holy fuck, how did I get so lucky to even be here, you know?
Right.
It's pretty wild. It's really, sometimes it gets overwhelming to think about it because to go back in the journey, I'm just a kid from this small fucking town who didn't do anything to deserve any of this, you know? Yeah. Huh. That's weird to think about, you know?
I don't like to look at it that way because growing up in a military family and then, you know, the school of hard knocks like you had as a kid, I had a pretty similar upbringing. You know, my dad always told me when you walk into the room, kick the door down and own it, you know. And there's a philosopher or like a self-help guru. I don't really know how he labels himself as, but he has like this mantra that he preaches. Like every day when you wake up, you look in the mirror and you say, today's going to be a good day. And then you pick something about your day-to-day life and then you modify a phrase for it. So my job is the best job in the world and there's no job I would rather have because, and you pick something uber positive about whatever you want. And then you repeat that to yourself every day, and then that positivity becomes a part of your life. And I don't think that you have to go all new age self-help with any of this stuff. I think that you know, through all of our trials and tribulations and the journey that we take, you have to roll with the punches, you know, as corny as that is, and find the positivity and grow. I mean, life's about growth. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely, man. You have to, like, grow and evolve and, like, it's weird because okay, I just turned 32. Spoiler alert, I just had a birthday. And at this point, I feel like something that I was told when I was younger that I thought was really stupid is really true. And it's every 7 years you die and are born again.
Mm-hmm. I can believe that.
So every 7 years is a cycle of life, and every seventh year you change. And I look back at 28-year-old me. That was my last full seventh year cycle. I'm not 28-year-old me. That was in 2014, dude. That guy, earlier in the story I told you, it was dark. It was bad. I didn't want to, I was destructive in every front of my life and did not care. And I am fucking so grateful I got out unscathed and didn't harm anybody or myself at any of those levels. But, you know, every 7 years. So now I'm in, like, kind of in the, what you would call the twilight of this next 7 years. I'm starting to look at this most recent thing and what can I improve and change. And I've really started to hone in on getting rid of this thing I have that you've never seen me angry, like angry, like really fucking ready to rage. And when it comes out, it's really ugly. I don't like it. It, after the fact, makes me genuinely feel like a gross person. And that's what I'm recognizing is something that needs to change in my next cycle. So growth, like you said, it's a must, but it's I think more than growth, it's having the wherewithal that you need to grow.
Absolutely.
It's even being okay with saying, man, you know what? Like, I have pretty strong political beliefs, but this one, this is riffing, obviously, but this like one specific thing I believe, I was fucking wrong. And I probably need to rethink and reevaluate my fucking viewpoints. It's okay to do that. Mm-hmm. It's not like, okay, I did the podcast with Christian James Hand a few Voice of Survivals ago, and his thing on music about how people who think that they only listen to one kind of music are cool. Like, oh yeah, well, I only listen to fucking metal, man. Like, you're depriving yourself of all these other possible joys. Like, it makes sense if you don't like one genre. For example, I don't really like country. Country music reminds me of my parents' divorce. They both actively listened to country music during that time. Mm-hmm. I don't want to hear it. And it was in the heyday of good country, like Garth Brooks and George Strait and fucking Alan Jackson and Reba and all those fucking motherfuckers, man. Like in the Brooks and Dunn, Jesus, you know, like in the golden era of country music, as it were. And I hate it because it makes me think of them and all the darkness that I used to live. You know, and I don't know. I can't wait for whatever's coming next, man. Like whatever's a part of the next part of the journey. Like the past couple years have been rough. It's been really hard. So right before the band started this takeoff thing that we did, because we had been playing for a year, practicing. I was working for this place, Honey Baked Ham, and I loved that job. And that's weird because it's food industry, but I was at that point like really wanting to be like a chef. It was one of the things. It's still one of the things I love doing is cooking for people, and I want to like always like, you want me to cook for you? Want me to cook for you? Can I cook for you? Can I cook you something? Because I want to impress you with my food, and I want you to taste it. You know. So I was working there, and we had just got done with a holiday season, and then they said, oh, you were only holiday help, and let me go. And I was at a crossroads, and I said, okay, I can go work for the man again, or I can figure this shit out and make money doing something else. And for the first year and a half of the band after I lost Honey Baked job, I sold all my pops, all the pops that were high in value that I had saved up over the years. A little bit of a nest egg. They weren't my comics. My comics are worth tenfold what I sold in pops. But hey, I did the pop hustle. I made a nice amount of money. I got to do what I wanted and set myself right and figure out what I wanted to do. I realized I still like the casino industry. I don't like casinos though. So I'm like kind of at a loss. We're at this party for Veronica's sister. And this lady is talking to Sarah, and she's like, yeah, I work this private casino thing where you pick the days you want to work and all this blah, blah. And she was like, wait, what? Did you just describe Nate's literal perfect job? So she told me about it, and I've been doing that ever since, man. Any chance I get when we're not doing shows, I'm doing that. The really nice thing that I've been fortunate enough to be a part of is that the shows we've been doing lately have been doing really well money-wise. We've been making money as a band, and that keeps justifying what we're doing and actually pushing for the dream. Like, it's terrifying to not have a real 9-to-5 day-to-day boss guy thing, but it's also so nice to know that any day that I want to work, I can go make some extra cash. Anytime that I'm not having shows, I can buckle down and get extra funds in, you know? And see, I'm of the mind that the money's not even about me, so I just filter it to the bank accounts. Put it in there, do the thing. You guys operate the life. Don't let me have the money because I'll make us broke. Like, that's not a lie. It's not. I want too many cool things, man. So I have to just act like I'm poor all the time. It just makes things easier. So, but like, having the opportunity to do that and then having the success that the band has had and have it work out how it has worked out to this point where we can book shows and get guarantees and draw fucking, you know, it's one thing to say, oh, I've played a lot of cities, but I've played to 2 people. It's another thing to say you've packed venues in multiple cities. Like, that's a cool fucking experience. I don't care who you are, if you're into music or not, to know that somebody can do that. Like, it's special, you know? And I get it. We're unique, and that's why people want to know, like, how do they do it? And then that the mystique is over after that. But then we get repeat customers, and that's like the mystery of it that I still can't figure out is what do we do that make people want to consistently come back to our music? Mm-hmm. What? Are you getting a phone call?
No.
Hold on. Oh. Huh. Oh, shit. Okay. So, we're going to have to edit that. I'll have to text her right now. Sorry for this quick delay, folks. We'll probably cut this shit out.
At least it's easy. There's just the pause there.
Okay. I didn't realize that I had this page up.
We're at 2 hours and 42 minutes.
Sure.
Where do you want to go next, or do you want to wrap it up?
Man, I feel like I've talked a lot about kind of all the things, you know. I do want to mention one thing that I never got back to that's interesting to note. It's just a tiny thing in regard to earlier in the story we were talking about fires, right?
Mm-hmm.
There was a third Hoopston fire that I experienced, and I haven't talked about it yet. So after I moved out of Hoopston, that leads me to two things. So after I moved away from Hoopston to do the thing and start my new life up there, and I've been there for 7 years now, which is crazy. A whole cycle, as it were. So when I moved, they started putting a new tire factory in Hoopston that was recycling rubber tires, okay? Mm-hmm. So they just... Like, every time I would come home to visit, I would just look at that factory and I would just be like, man, they're not really safe. Like, they just have all these tires everywhere. What if one caught fire one day? Like, they wouldn't stop it. It couldn't, there's nothing you can do to put out that kind of fire if this thing catches. So one day I'm at home. It's 7:45 in the morning and my dad calls me and I thought somebody in my family died. And he said, hey, good morning. I said, what happened? What's up? He goes, you'll never believe it. The tire place is on fire. What? And dude, it burnt for 4 months. And it fucked this town up. There was damage everywhere, and the smoke was huge. We have pictures of it that are incredible. My dad was taking pictures of it, and I was home the next day to see like them still fighting it and the devastation. It was insane. It was another one of those situations where I'll never forget the imagery of the fire and the smoke and just walking around all that.
You light some tires on fire, and it's serious business. Dude,
I'm telling you, it is not a joke. It is not a fucking joke. So, another thing I wanted to mention is, so Dad got sick, kinda, and I don't mean sick, kinda like he doesn't have an illness, more that he has spinal degradation and stenosis. So his back is literally fusing into itself while also crumbling.
Mm-hmm.
How awesome. He tells me that in February, right after I lost my job at Honey Baked Ham. And, okay, so this is a new stress on me. My dad's possibly... the way he breaks it down to me, he said the doctors told him realistically he had 6 months and he might be in a wheelchair. Because they didn't know how rapid or how much worse it could get. Mm-hmm. And of course, now he's several years out. He's not yet needed even a cane, so he's fought it. He's done a lot to keep up on it, you know, and he didn't want to go down without no fight. So, with all that happening, though, like 2 months after that, he gets a notice from his insurance. Says, hey, you need to side your entire house, or we're going to drop your insurance on your house. So now, because my dad had let the house kind of go to hell, he hadn't painted it in like 20 years, and all the paint had chipped off, and it was kind of looked a little beat up. It looked a little tattered. We're not going to pretend it didn't look like shit, because it did. It wasn't pretty. So he's like, I can't afford to have it sided. I don't want to pay somebody to do it. I don't know what to do. I'm not going to pay somebody to paint it. And I said, fuck it. I don't have a job anymore, really. Like, I'm selling these pops. We've got the band. I'll come down any day you fucking need me, and we'll fucking do this house ourselves. And for 2 years we did, and we did this entire fucking house ourselves. Rebuilt the porch. We fucking sanded off every piece of old paint that this house had and got it back to the original 1902 wood to paint. And I fucking got to pick the color, and it was another fucking awesome bonding experience with me and my dad, man. There was so much learned, and I got so much life experience on how to do things to a house and how to make it look really great and sharp. And and not cut corners. And I mean, it was grueling. It was a really genuinely a learning experience across the board.
Yeah, those moments are really, really important. Just in general. It doesn't necessarily have to be with your mom or your dad or whoever. Just those experiences when you basically have a task that you would think is unachievable, and to kind of quote you from earlier, you pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you get it done. And to experience that with your dad, I mean, those moments are precious.
Well, and the thing that fucking got me about this too, Tyler, is that modern technology, I had my cell phone on me during the whole thing. So we chronicled, and you can see it on my Facebook page. There's a House Phillips fucking folder. It's 100 and some odd pictures, and it's the whole process. Everything we did as best as I could capture it in the moment. Some days were grueling as fuck, and the pictures do not do the damn fucking day any justice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was one day we started working at 6 a.m. and didn't stop until 6 p.m. And at fucking 5 o'clock, I said, Dad, we're done. We haven't eaten all day. We're going to die. And he said, okay, we're done. And we still fucking worked for another hour after he called it. It was intense, man. And it, like I said, it again, it made me appreciate life and being in the moment, and it not being, money is good. Money gets you things. Money allows you to do things, but money is not happiness.
Mm-hmm.
It cannot be happiness, because if you hinge your life on money being what makes you happy, your happiness will always wax and wane, and you will never be a truly happy person. If you can find what makes you happy around you, let the money come and go. Let the good and the bad come and go. As long as you're surrounded with the people you love, happiness is around the corner. They'll comfort you to make you feel better. They'll put you in a position to succeed. That's literally, those are the ways I live, man. That's fact.
You got to dig it. I mean,
yeah, I do, man.
I can't. I mean, you can go and it's frustrating for me, somebody that was so, nihilistic and pessimistic, and I always hyped myself up as a realist for so many years about positivity and appreciating trials and tribulations and growth, and it makes it even more cheesy now that I'm that asshole guy that got a taste of man, I was fucking wrong the whole time. Now I'm going to preach it. I'm going to put some respect on it.
Yes, and you know what? I'm glad you said that too, because that's been one of the things that I think you need more people to learn that trait.
Mm-hmm.
Being humble, being able to put your pride down and say, hey, I fucked up in a big way.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, man, my life has been filled with mistakes. I'm not going to bring them to the table here because they're mistakes that I live with every day. I don't really necessarily need the reminders. But the mistakes have allowed me to not be that person now. It's allowed me to better myself as an adult, giving perspective, giving me ability to... Listen, it's not easy to grow things in the universe now in the social media era. While you would think it would be easy, it also can be. They put all these roadblocks in your way. You know best. So, I think everything I've done, all my failures, all my lessons, the fucking fallout that we had with the network last year and shit, every fucking little thing that has happened in my journey has been to teach me stuff. I mean, that's a really lame-ass way to say it, but really, it has been to teach me, okay, let's just be real. Brandon leaving the network was devastating to me. I don't think I ever let on how devastating to any of you when it happened. The girls knew. They knew how fucked up I was about it. They also saw how genuinely upset I was and understood why I was upset. at the situation that led to Brandon leaving, okay? So they got to see kind of the whole thing, and I didn't really let you guys know it, but Brandon leaving taught me that no matter what happens, we are all creators, and we can do this. And if we have a show, like, example, I'm not wishing this upon anything, but fucking something happens and Dick can't ever do Podcastrophe again. And now Thursday, which has never been open on our network, is open. I'm not ever going to stress. I'm just going to be like, all right, cool, we'll figure it out. When that Thursday comes, I'll have something ready before then. Be prepared, be ready. Like, Brandon leaving taught me to just be okay with being on my feet and thinking on my feet and trusting the choices that have to be made, man. Of course, I'm lucky, too, because the team that we've all built together and the people that we have surrounded ourselves with are so fucking good that I can just a lot of times ask you guys, like, what do you think about this shit, man? Is this a good idea? And the first responses are the honest responses. I usually know AP is going to be the one human to find, like, some weird loophole, flawed question and, like, that makes me think of something I never would have considered. And I'm like, God damn it, you motherfucker.
He's the analyzer for sure.
Oh, man, on a real level. And I think that, you know, you and Dick are very supportive in knowing that I think that if I put my mind to a vision or an idea I have, you guys trust that I'm able to actually execute the plan. I'm not going to leave you hanging, as it were.
When I think what really works for us as a network is we're all true to nature creators. And, I mean, by the definition, we are all every day in some aspect creating something. Even if it's just concept, you know, just strictly like shower thoughts, concepts. Every one of us from, you know, your show all the way down to the newest shows on the network, every host and co-host and team, you know, mini team inside our overarching team, we're all creators and we all want each other to succeed as much as we want ourselves to succeed. And it makes it, you know, when I was brought into the fold, I had, you know, at first a pretty standoffish outlook on it. Like, yeah, I'm gonna hang out and I'm gonna drink some beer and I'll get to know these people and I get to talk because I like to talk a lot. So, you know,
The end.
I mean, like, yeah, I mean, I'll do this as long as it's fun, and when it stops being fun, I'm not gonna do it anymore. You know, it was as casual as it could be. And then, you know, between you and Brandon and Blaine, and then, you know, Nick got involved shortly after that, and AP and I started to become friends, and it very quickly became this team and not just a bunch of people. It wasn't just a ragtag group of people trying to become podcast famous. And I think at this point, all of us would like for that to happen. But we are so passionate about what we do on a week-to-week basis, and you know, I'm the perfect example. I'm on a hiatus right now from my own show. You know, we are flexible enough and understanding enough real life from the perspective of real life that we can say, take the time that you need, or we will implement or change this to cater, not necessarily cater or coddle, but so we as a group can continue to be successful. And I think in the industry that's rare. I think in life that is rare, that you can have this many people involved in something and collectively maintain success and continue collectively to gain more and more success. And it's just, you know, as standoffish as I was from the get-go, you know, other than the little bit of drama that we've had, I mean, why would anyone not want to be a part of the team that we have?
I mean, I think that I will say I have a low tolerance for bullshit. And I think that if you can put up with that from me and just me and my weird quirks, that you easily fit into the cog that is the JIC wheel. And it's funny because I remember back when you first started and in the early days, and I think like you had only been podcasting a few months and we had that team meeting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and like, I think you started to really come out of your shell and realize, like, I guess my vision has never been about me once the network started. Because my thought is, like, I don't give a fuck what I personally put out. Like, if my podcasts are getting noticed, cool. That's amazing. I'm glad people listen. I'm glad they're entertained by what I'm saying. But I want to see people like you and AP and Chris Plant and fucking and Nick Maxon, like you said, and Dave Linder and all these guys. I want to see them find a different voice that they didn't even realize they had, because they have it. And it all starts from stupid little shit. Man, I knew Nick Maxon was going to be a phenomenal podcaster when he jumped on an episode of JIC at LaFiCon the first year we hosted. And I was like, that was awesome. That worked. That guy would be really good. And then I heard him on Podcastrophe, and I was 100%. I looked at Sarah and I said, that guy has to have his own show. And I immediately messaged him and said, hey, man, I'm doing this network thing. What do you think? Boom. You know, so I just see people who have this ability, and I want everybody, like, I've been doing podcasting long enough that I can tell you, hey, you can start a show and I can help you run it, and you don't have to pay for your hosting, and you don't have to do any of these other things. And how much stress is that off your shoulders to just be able to go in and talk?
Oh, it's a ton.
Right?
It's a ton. I mean, obviously you have to have the equipment to do it, but if you have someone basically filling that management role behind the scenes, like, just put forth good material. It doesn't even necessarily have to be good material. It's just put forth the material that you want to put forth. It's as simple as that.
Absolutely, man. And just be true to yourself when you're podcasting, because that's all I ever did when I did JIC, man. I just talk about things I really believe I want to talk about and believe in. And if I set a show idea up, it's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to fucking back down from it. Like, example, for LaFiCon this weekend, people are going to be going out to LaFiCon this weekend. For those of you who are listening on release day, Saturday and Sunday, LaFiCon in Lafayette, Indiana, right? But the JIC we do is going to be like probably a giant quiz on the MCU. Asking a lot of around and different questions and almost doing Jeopardy-style points or some shit. I haven't officially finished my plan, but I'm like almost there, you know? And it's like on the fly, because I had yesterday made the schedule and I had to make a change on what we were going to be able to talk about. So now I'm on the fly, being fly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I went there. Have no idea where that came from. Sorry.
It's all right.
That's a weird Nate tangent. Just happens to my brain.
We're at the 3-hour mark now, so
yeah, we did it.
We are going to get tangenty real fast.
Sure. Nah, man, ultimately, though, my journey and the voice of survival, the reason I feel I am a voice for survival is I've seen life be really shitty in a lot of different fronts. You guys have heard a lot of the shit that I've been through today. Like, maybe I shouldn't have been fucking PTSDing y'all with my fucking bad drama and my baggage and whatnot. But I don't want my journey to be defined on my shortcomings and the things bad that happened to me, because I was that person for a time that wanted to not glorify, I guess that's a bad word, but I wanted to be constantly reminded of the things that have hurt and that it caused me pain. And now in my formative years, I want to be grateful for all the things that make me happy, reflect on all the moments that I've been awarded just by chance. It's not often that I can say that for some people listening tonight, it's like 99% sure I'm playing a sellout show in Chicago, in the city of Chicago. And I'm sitting in my kid bedroom right now, which the Draxus wall, you can see, it's behind me. That's the old band logo and a lot of our sets from the old day. But if I could go back and tell that kid that he'd be selling a show out in the city of Chicago, that's ultimate validation, man. It just like that overwhelms me, I think, more than anything that I've experienced in this world, is that the person I wanted to become, I found a way to become, and I also found a way to not be the person that was preventing me from becoming who I am, if that adds up.
Well, and I think you have to add a little bit to that. You found a way to take the person that you were, the person that you are, and the person that you want to be, and make each one of those iterations of yourself better than it would have been if you had just thrown a dart on the wall and said, that's the person I want to be, and I'm going to throw another dart, and it's going to land right next to it, and that's going to validate me. Anyone that is successful or recognizes their success in whatever way they want to justify it, they have to recognize that you have to set a goal, attain that goal, or attain past that goal. You should strive to be better than what you ever wanted to be every day, and I think that from this episode, listening to your journey, having the privilege to hear the journey and be a part of it.
It's a weird one. I'm sorry.
No, it's not a weird. I mean, it's real life, and I think that's part of the reason why I enjoy listening to this show so much. It's because regardless of who's on the other mic opposite you or myself or whoever is doing the show, it doesn't matter. It allows myself as the listener to kind of detach from reality a little bit and recognize that I am just a regular guy, and the people that are going through their journey and you know, on how they've survived their journey in whatever capacity, we're all just real people. We're just people, you know?
Yes, we're just people. Because we're all obviously real. We're all here on this plane. Whatever this plane is real in some capacity because we're doing this thing that's conversing and creating and whatnot. But I think that if I were to summarize my life's journey to this point, it's like I am becoming the kid no one believed I could be. That's it. That's absolutely it. I am I'm striving to make moves, not just for myself, but for the people I surround myself with, so that we can all obtain something successful. And I don't necessarily mean in money, because to me, and maybe we close here because this is a good thing to talk about. This is the word that I always think about when I make moves in anything I do. It's legacy. What is this going to do to the legacy of me? And is this going to impact what, like, people might not remember me, man. And I'm just going to be real. Like, something could happen. I could fall by the wayside and be forgotten in the annals of history, whatever. That's a fact. That is just fucking life. Or something that I have done could impact this planet and this world in such a way that people talk about me. And if they're going to be talking, I want them to know that everything I ever did towards my legacy was from my heart. It was for everyone else to be a part of this, because I'm nothing. I'm literally nothing without the people that I've been surrounded with. Because I can only do so much. I can only be so much of a person, and I'm only who I am, ultimately. But the people that I've been lucky, you coming into my life, and Sarah and Veronica, and having people who don't know that they impact my life, teachers and shit, man, like, that's the thing I want to always think about, man, is that my drive and my passion was for us all to feel that we did something bigger than us. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. I don't really have anything else, man. I think I'm tapped, and I mean, unless you want me to start just riffing on crazy stories about my ute.
Maybe we can save that for episode 2.
Ooh, we can do a bonus episode. I got some interesting life stories and shib.
What you and I should do is to do a part 2 for you, or for this episode and for the episode I do, and we just go back and forth telling stupid stories to each other about
my gosh,
about our fucking
I love
life.
it. Oh, that's so good. A dual interview. Ugh.
It's basically just like lightning round. Story.
X.
Yes. God, I love Peter Dinklage.
He's the man. He's so good. Did you see that meme that just started going around today that's like Peter Dinklage reveals he was on his knees for the first 8 seasons?
Yeah, I fucking dug it.
Oh, that's great.
It's so Peter Dinklage too. Like he's fucking circulating that meme right now.
Oh, for sure. I think first of all, I want to say thank you for conducting an interview on me. I didn't realize we'd go for 3 hours. I guess I didn't realize I had that much of a journey to talk about. It all feels very consolidated in my brain because it's like I'm always focused on the next task. So looking back is kind of hard. It was really nice to reflect and very lethargic for me to experience and think about some of the things that I don't take time to think about, man. I really am grateful. I do think about how lucky I am to be in the position I am in my life and have the things I have and have built any modicum of success and have anybody know who the fuck I am to any level. Like, it's exceeded any expectation to who I thought I was going to become, you know? So thank you for doing this today with me. It was really, really genuinely special.
Thank you for allowing me to be a part of it.
Fucking A, I wouldn't have it any other way, man. But now we're going to be professionals for a second because I'm going to get into the plugs. How about
Plug
it?
it.
Right?
Plug it away, my
man. You guys
man.
can check out The Voice of Survival. I'm going to do that again. Hold on. You guys can check out the Voice of Survival podcast right here on the Journey into Comics network at journeyintocomics.com. You can get us on iTunes, Podbean, Stitcher Radio, Google Play Music, Spotify, CastBox, TuneIn, and many others. Just search Journey into Comics Network or go to patreon.com/Journey into Comics. Give us $1 for that early access and exclusive content-y goodness. You know you want to, and every dollar you give us helps. Just saying, it really does. It really genuinely fucking helps us. We're so grateful for you all. Anyways, folks, I think that's going to do it. Tyler, thank me for having you as my host and your guest. That's a weird... That was a weird one. I had to figure out how to say that on the fly, and then once it came out, I couldn't. Once Pandora's out of the box, you can't put it back in.
Nope. She don't want to go back.
Seriously, man, though, thank you so much. It was
You're
a
welcome.
pleasure chatting with you. Hopefully, like I said, my journey is not a bore. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this week's episode of Journey into Comics. Shit, how many times have I done that show this fucking year that I'm...
Journey into Survival Comics.
Journey into Survival Voice of Comics.
Wrestling.
Anyways, did you just say wrestling out of nowhere?
Yes. You just gotta throw another one in there. Wrestling.
Okay, sure. I like it. All right, folks. Well, I think that's going to do it for this week's episode of The Voice of Survival. I have been your guest, Nate.
And I've been your host, Tyler.
And we will see you guys later. Thank you so much for listening. Ciao.